So here's the pitch, okay? We've all seen Myth Swifts. It's that outtake show, and it was running it in. I saw chat spamming when I told Jordan to focus. So we're gonna run with that. Strike while the iron is hot. Jordan sitting at his desk at the video team section. I don't know what they do. I don't care what they do. But for the premise of this video, cannot be focused. Watching anime butts on one screen. I don't care what he's doing. Just can't be working. All right? And then he hears Myth Swifts. Big TV right behind him. Myth Swifts playing. Here's the line. It says Jordan, focus. Okay? And then his eyes go wide. He turns around, turns off the TV. He's trying to get rid of me. He knows he's not focused, but he knows he needs to be. But goes back to his desk, goes back to doing whatever he's doing. But he has to focus. So I'm at his window. Boom, slam on the window. I'm like the Babadook, okay? He doesn't know where I'm coming from. I slam the window, piece of paper, says focus. He does a little bit. He focuses a little bit. He doesn't turn off the anime butts. No. He flips his hat around, Ash Ketchum style. I don't know. And then he goes back to doing anything he wants, but not focusing. That's not enough for me. That's not enough for hi-rez. It's not enough for what we stand for. So I appear behind the wall behind him, okay? Boom, Mifflin, up there. I tell him to tighten up. He needs to focus. He does a little bit more. He focuses a little bit, but not enough, okay? And then it's not enough for me. It's not enough for me, okay? We have to go even further beyond that, all right? He does eventually close the screen, but that's not enough. I'm still appearing. I'm appearing everywhere. I'm in the bathroom. I'm in his cereal. I'm in his snacks. I'm telling him to focus, and eventually he switches desks. I'm under his desk, okay? I'm telling him to focus there, and that's where it happens. He sits in a maxonomic chair, his eyes dilate, and he finally finds his focus.
Okay. Approved.
I sold it? I sold it! Yes! I'm gonna sell so many chairs.
Jordan, what the was that? We just lived a fever dream. I have no idea what just happened, and we approved it.
What kind of anime butts we talking? What kind of anime butts we talking?
You broke me.
Well, good afternoon, SMITE fans, and welcome back to Day 2 of Phase 2's SPL playoffs. And thanks to our friends at Maxonomic, you can get yourself one of those nice little chairs available to you at needforseat.com and use code SMITEMAX. Get yourself a nice little discount available for yourself so that you can focus up. And you're going to want to focus up here because we got a big set ahead of us here. The Camelot Kings and the Tartarus Titans. Titans able to take the Dragons down yesterday in 3-1, but now they've got to go against the #1 seeded Camelot Kings. My name is J Mac Tucker. Joining me is Taco and Hurrywind from the Jade Dragons, going to be joining us for this set.
How are you? Excited to be here today?
Yeah, I'm excited. I'd rather be playing, but I'm excited to be up here and be part of it at least.
Okay, apologies on mine, 'cause that's a bit of a loaded question. I might not have thought that went through all the way, but no, for sure. I mean, it's always an entertaining time, though, at least being able to see what the Titans are going to do after you had to experience them.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the Titans probably have a lot more in store for the rest of this tournament as well. I don't think we really got to explore the meta thoroughly like I think we would have if we were the ones who made it through, so I'm kind of interested to see what they kind of have in their back pocket for the rest of this tournament.
And this is going to be our second and final set for today. The winner of this will face off against the Atlantis Leviathans, who just had a nice 3-1 victory over the Olympus Fults, if you're following the bracket for it. And jumping right into it, yeah, it's always nice to be able to play against them, but now that you've kind of seen and experienced what this Titans team is capable of, and maybe even seeing what you guys have faced off against the Camelot Kings, what are kind of some of the outliers here for the Titans and the Kings that could be big factors for them?
Right, well, I think the biggest factor that everyone's going to be thinking about is the Hell, and the Titans play it in mid, and the Kings play it in solo, and we've yet to see them play it in mid, and I think that dynamic of when they're willing to pick it, if it's even going to be in the game at all, and what they're willing to pick it into is going to be a big factor in how these picks and bans go.
What about you, Taco? You're kind of talking a little bit more on this Hell pick as well.
It's kind of just the flavor of playoffs. She just seems to be, there's always something, I think, that ends up breaking through for playoffs time periods. It's as expected, I think, for tournaments where teams are going to be able to explore and basically just figure out what seems the most powerful during that given weekend. And right now, it just seems as though Hell potentially unstoppable. I mean, we did see a strong response from the Leviathans in the last set up against the Olympus Bolts when they were able to rock it, but between these two teams, it could really be a make-or-break type of pick.
Maybe it all kind of depends around here where you can do with your support players for it. Genetics from the Camelot Kings has been one of the primary focuses for so many teams when it comes to the drafting phase. We've seen it go as far as him getting, 7th, 8th pick when it comes down to his supports, and it's been a primary factor for almost every team going up against it. Some teams have started to make some adjustments here, but it seems like no matter what you put Genetics on, he can somehow make it look good.
Yeah, I mean, Genetics, or the Wall God, as he's become to be known, has definitely seen a big rise this year. I played with him for a bit last year, and it's been nice to see him grow into the player that I think he's becoming today. And I think he's just getting better every day. He's kind of changed the support God pool on his own a lot this year, especially as of late. He brought the Terra in. He made the Ymir look unstoppable. I think he's definitely going to be a big player and a big point of interest in this set.
And given the fact that he's up against Aurora, it's kind of interesting because both of these players, I think, are relatively aggressive in their God Pool selection choices. I know that for Genetics, he's got that, I can't really call it a disadvantage just because of how he's been playing all season long despite the ping disparity, but with the Terras, with the Emirs, even the Yemojas, I would definitely anticipate some of the more aggressive frontline options to be the priority between these two teams.
It is typically more of the Guardians that we do see out of Genetics. I don't recall any time that we've seen him outside of one of the Guardian God pools for him. Meanwhile, if you look at the opposite side of the board for it, Aurora, the world is his oyster for. I mean, the assassin supports, the warrior supports have all been things within his wheelhouse. It's going to be a tough task here for Genetics and really for anybody to try and ban against this Aurora and this Titans team.
Yeah, I mean, I think while Aurora has more picks, I think Genetics has looked like his picks need to be banned more so. They need to be like dealt with. I think Aurora being able to be that more aggressive style, and maybe if he comes out of the gate here, might be looking to be more of a problem, I think, at least early on in this set. We saw Aurora the other day go towards a Khepri pick too, which I think is interesting, so I'm not exactly sure what kind of playstyle Aurora is exactly looking to pin down for this tournament, but I think he's definitely going to be a force to be reckoned with.
As far as playoffs or tournaments in general are considered, it's always generally about who can adapt the fastest whenever a certain type of meta seems to be breaking out in each given set. And as far as Game 1 is concerned, I think that would be a little bit more of the experimental phase for the Titans as opposed to Camelot Kings. I do think that the Camelot Kings have a certain area of predictability that other teams can work into because they are a team that is very prone to running double Guardian, so you can anticipate that they're going to be looking for a lot of crowd control, a lot of lockdown, basically just consistent setup that their carries can work through.
That's one question I kind of wanted to pose to you here, Taco, is we've seen a lot of what the Camelot Kings done. We've seen how deep Genetics God Pool is. We've seen what we can imagine at the moment is just about every composition style that you want to play here. But with the Titans bringing in a new jungler partway through the split, how does this change them going in towards these playoff stages?
Well, this might actually be one of the best challenges for Layers on this Tartarus Titans roster because Layers, I think, has traditionally always been a little bit more towards that hyper carry aspect. But when you have carries like Cyclone Spin, like Paul on your team, you don't need to be the all-star of that roster. You need to be someone that can facilitate pressure and facilitate control. And when you're dealing with Captain Twig especially, he is someone that is the full embodiment when it comes to utility jungle style.
Well, let's see where everything falls into place here for Picks and Bans game number 1 against the Camelot Kings and the Tartarus Titans. A lot to be said of the God pools amongst all these players. We talked very briefly on earlier about Hell, how she can shake up the drafts because while both teams play it, they do play it in two very different roles.
Right, so I think my best guess is that the Hell is not even going to be in this set. I think it's shown to be quite a problem around mid and solo for the Kings respectively, so I expect it to get banned. The first ban being Emoji here from the Kings. That's a little surprising to me because I know Genetics is a Emoji player himself here. Obviously their second pick, but I'm surprised they decided to ban that away.
It is interesting that they would take out such a strong frontline option, but leads me to believe that they might be shifting their focus elsewhere, maybe trying to look to solidify a potential Osiris God pick for Captain Twig. It's something that he's shown a lot of preference for, and it just has a lot of that 2v2 control, because if there's one thing that I think I really took away from the Tartarus Titans sets and you guys yesterday was that the Titans love playing that 2v2 mid-jungle dynamic here, and that's something that I think has kind of been a little bit more inconsistent as far as Camelot Kings are concerned. I think a lot of that just has to do with the fact that Big Man Tinks, Captain Twig, they tend to be a little bit more of that trade-off aspect where it's either going to be Twig trying to take the driver's seat or it's going to be Big Man Tinks, but whichever one of them decides to be the pressure responser, I think that that's going to kind of determine where the Titans decide to go with their 2v2.
As we take a look at the first bands coming through, Yamoja, Odin, and Erlong Shen taken away by the Camelot Kings. Meanwhile, flip side, hey, we'll actually see a Tiamat band this time and not a 10th pick Tiamat like we saw earlier on into our set. So a little bit of respect coming from the Titans with that, but they'll be followed with a Hell and a Ram, but that does leave Raijin open on the table, and we saw the impact Shinto was able to have with it. How do you kind of feel about Raijin right now, Hurry, when it seems like everybody wants to play him, everybody doesn't want to play him? Is he kind of that top pick, top band right now?
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely a big focal point. He kind of just does it all. You know, he's got a dash, he has early pressure, he transitions well into the late game, he has a CC immune ultimate. His kid is just very strong right now, and I think he's in a level above most of the other mid picks right now. And some teams have kind of looked unstoppable with him. So it makes sense that the Kings would want to take that away. I'm also not surprised to see the Titans ban away the Rama here. The Kings have been top 3ing that pretty consistently. It seems pretty core to the way they've been wanting to play the game. Interested to see how that shakes up the rest of these picks and bans.
Do you see a Khepri immediately picked up here by the Titans, taking a little bit of a shot at genetics here, Taco, making sure to take one of his more comfort picks. In fact, if I'm not mistaken from what Gormizer told me, undefeated on this Khepri pick so far is genetics, so making sure to take that one out of his hands and getting their dual lane locked in almost instantly here for Aurora and Cyclone.
Well, it also poses a pretty big threat towards the Kings because I think Tartarus Titans are a team that loves looking for that single target focus pick pressure style of play, and so when you have the Khepri on your side, not only do the Camelot Kings lose a nice counterplay opportunity through that Scare's Blessing, but I think it could arguably even make the Tartarus Titans be able to double down on early to mid game pressure as well, because you already have the Artemis. Artemis, I think, having a little bit more freedom and mobility due to the fact that the Kings chose to ban that Odin, so a huge AoE threat kind of removed from that Artemis, but Gilgamesh can kind of be problematic, but again, I am still seeing a little bit more of that single target focus, and Amir can maybe alleviate some of that just because he'll be able to create some separation.
You see Raijin, Gilgamesh, Ymir as the first picks here for the Camelot Kings. So we got the mid 3v3 action holding out here. And Haruan, if you're looking at these three kinds of gods, what options are you maybe looking towards as a mid laner?
Well, first of all, I just want to point out the Kings have sort of just gotten all of their top picks in these respective roles as well. I have to imagine these picks work well in the 3v3 together too. You know, these are what the Kings want. And if I'm on the other side, I don't think I particularly love a lot of picks into it. I personally like the Soul into the Gilgamesh because she just has a natural response in her kit with her 3 to the Gilgamesh ult. So that's what I would go towards. We have seen Paul play it. I would be interested to see, well, it's banned now, so he won't be picking that. So I actually don't know what he'll be picking into. We might see some weird Chronos action or something. Who knows? I don't know what lives that right now.
Hey, great minds think alike for it. You like Soul against Gilgamesh? Well, why don't we just ban the Soul away when we pick up that Gilgamesh? Alongside it will be a Chernobog ban and an Osiris, who has been one of the top bans in that first set. I think he was banned away every single game. Will kind of manage to sneak through here, Taco, going over towards that jungle role.
Wise of the Titans to lock in this Osiris before that 4th, 5th banning period, because as you can already tell, Kings definitely taking note of that Camazot's influence that Tartarus Titans have been very heavy on as of late. And with the Morgan Le Fay now coming in as the response here, this is definitely a little bit of a risky move, I would say, from Paul, because Morgan, she has the knockup, she has the fear, but on that same note, I think that the range from Raijin and even Gilgamesh's capability of being able to kind of jump right into the back line could pose some immediate threat to this Morgan, but I guess that's more so where the prevalence comes in for that Khepri pick earlier on, because if the Kings are gonna try to isolate this Morgan Le Fay, or anyone really from the Tartarus Titans back line, they're gonna have a really tough time getting through that Khepri first.
Yeah, you're sitting here as this Morgan Le Fay in mid. You have really no mobility. You're going up against the Gilgamesh Ymir. Is this just a wait until my Khepri is finally out of lane and then maybe try and start making some impact further from there?
Well, the Morgan actually has the Osiris on her team, and that means they're going to have priority around the mid camps early. Osiris just clears the early jungle just extremely quickly with the Mannequin Scepter. A lot faster than the Gilgamesh, so they'll actually have priority on the first mids, and I imagine the first respawn as well, despite being a weaker early game character. And so I actually expect the Morgan to be able to kind of get out of this early game comfortably due to that jungle Osiris pick.
Wild to see the difference in god priority amongst these two teams, where last set it was all RDO and all Cerberus. Those were the top bans, the top picks for them, and now we're seeing those fall to the bottom two for both these teams. A little confused here, Taco, why we're seeing RDO as a 4th pick for the Kings?
Artio is a 4th pick, but you have to look at what the Tartarus Titans took away. The Rom and the Chernobog, I think, are really smart ban-out options because Nectroid has just been insanely comfortable with this Rom. Very few teams, if any, really ever try to take that pick away from him, the Rom specifically. So forcing him into a different sort of ADC matchup, especially one that I would argue probably leans a little bit more in the Artemis's favor because she has great range with her Suppress the Insolent to kind of poke out this Apollo. So whether it's Apollo Amir or even Apollo with the Artio, I get that that's good lane clear and can definitely be some strong laning pressure, but I like the counter initiation options from the Tartarus Titans.
Well, game number 1 for the Camelot Kings and Tartarus Titans are here and ready to go. We're going to take it to Dulcin and Mifflin to bring us the action.
Time to find us a second finalist as the Camelot Kings and the Tartarus Titans battle it out. Dulcin, Mifflin, and Doug will be bringing you the action for at least 3 games here, but potentially all 5. And Miff, these 2 teams have the talent to go all 5 with one another. Would not be surprised if this one goes long.
No, I'm expecting this one to go the distance, truthfully. Maybe if you're unlucky, we'll see a 3-1, but I think we're going to get lucky here today, man. Both of these squads have been playing nearly at the top of what I think they're capable of, especially in recent weeks. I mean, there have been a lot of discussions, a lot of discourse about the Camelot Kings, maybe some people saying that Captain Twig has shown a little bit too much of his hand coming into playoffs, and we'll see whether or not that's the case, as this is the first look at them we're going to have all weekend. I'm pumped, Dave. I'm expecting a lot of sparks to fly.
Here's where I'm excited for the Camelot Kings. They have an Artio on their team right now, and it's Variety, one of the players that has picked up this pick early in Phase 2 of Season 8 here. Netrioid gets trapped in by Cyclone Spin, has to use the beads.
Whoa!
Oh, and then the tick damage from Aurora. Are you kidding me? Tartarus Titans get it done cleanly. They min-max every ounce of damage they got, and they're on board first.
Netroid thought he didn't have to use his beads, and he's wrong. Captain Twig, you're stepping too far up.
Oh, the Thunder Crash for the silence from Big Man Tings has saved his jungler's life. BMT comes up big, and the Camelot Kings avoid a death on their side, so it is a true first blood over to the Titans. Nearly lose another.
It's crazy, man. We have barely had an opportunity to even set the stage here for this playoffs match.
Ourselves yet, right?
Yeah. Okay. Look, here's what happens. He thinks he can get out of there. Is a little bit slow on the beads, and that's all it takes, man. The third ability from Artemis doing the lion's share of the work and the tick damage. Credit for the kill this time around. Netrioid is one of the guys who generally likes to find the solo kills. He's the soloing-ist hunter inside of the SPL right now, but as it stands, 0-1 for his team. Rough start.
Brutal, and I think literally the least amount of damage that tick could have done. You would have loved that one to go over to Cyclone Spin, but getting lane kind of priority pressure on the left side of the map, always going to be good for the Tartarus Titans. And that's without any sort of input from Layers. And remember, one of the big pieces that we saw for this Tartarus Titans team yesterday against the Dragons, they were able to win it in 4 against the Dragons yesterday, was Layers in the jungle.
Good lord.
Outpacing Sanford Soccer at points, and so Layers not even having to do that here early. Feels pretty
wow.
good. Great abduct by Aurora, but Captain Twig still has to leave, and then it's a double freeze from Genetics. A great chance for the Kings to get a kill on board, and Netrioid is the one who benefits. Aurora will scurry on away, and the Camelot Kings have answered back.
Tough situation for Aurora. Sometimes you play perfect and you go unrewarded, and that's exactly what happens here.
Uh-oh, Layers in on the return gank. Netrioid dashes away. Isn't enough for the time being. Layers will chase him down, and Layers will get the kill. Paul in range for the assist, so a little extra benefit to the Titans.
I like Netrioid's just mentality there, though. The second he drops that dash, realizing that there's no world, I'm walking out of here. So the best case scenario for me is that I can either find a return kill if Layers make some misplays, or potentially force someone back to base.
Genetics on the purple buff. Invade. I'll do you one better. I'll get a lot of damage on the Layers. Has he killed himself, though? The stun from Layers is here on the other end. And Cyclone Spin gets the purple and a kill.
Overzealous play from Genetics there alone. Thinks that maybe he's able to find the kill on the Layers, and simply not the case. Tether is incredibly strong at this point of the game, and despite having that Frostbite passive, Genetics really wasn't allowed to close gap. The Sickle Slow was all it really took for Layers to just kind of keep him, dragging him by the nose deeper into his side of the jungle. And now the Camelot Kings, who were only slightly behind earlier on, have dug themselves a much deeper hole. At gold, probably not the biggest deal at this point. We're not even really at that 1,000 mark. Experience, though, is slowly becoming an issue.
I wonder what what the solo laners think in a moment like this. We're 4 minutes in. All 4 kills have happened on the left side of the map. They're just Benji and Variety are just seeing kills popping up on the screen, and they're looking around wondering what in the world is going on. And so the left side of the map now, a danger zone for both of these duo lanes. Both junglers have shown the desire to return to this left.
Look, I'll tell you exactly what these solo laners are thinking. Benji's like, okay, boys, let's go. And Variety's like, all right, guys, we just got to slow it down a little bit here.
Slow down.
Take it easy. Take it easy. You can't be getting picked at the enemy purple buff 3.5 minutes into this one. But Camelot Kings are still within grasp. They're still very much in this game. It's only about 800 gold separating these two squads. Junglers are remaining even. XP across the board really only starting to rear its head inside of the duo lane, maybe about a half level for Cyclone Spin and an entire level for Aurora at this point. So I'm not overly concerned for the Camelot Kings. This is a squad that generally doesn't even do that great inside of the early game. Genetics is a late game team fight monster. Give him that opportunity, I'm sure he'll step up.
And you've got another one if you're the Camelot Kings, and that's Variety on this Artio. And we're going to get to see an early glimpse at this Artio here on a Fire Giant Scorpion defense here. Benji's going to be in range. Big Man Tings is as well. This would be what actually looks like a 4 versus 2 because Captain Twig is on the right side of the map as well. Wall goes up from Genetics. Layers steals it away. And Captain Twig is going to try to make him pay. A nice stun out from Benji, though. Slows down the engage. And the Camelot Kings get the Scorpion stolen away. Great play there from the Tartarus Titans.
Captain Twig trades his Blink, and Benji trades his beads inside of that engagement. And the Tartarus Titans, realizing how many members of the Camelot Kings are actually on the right-hand side, are able to get a little bit more of a lead inside of the duo lane. Purple buff, Invade, and Greater Scorpion should fall down very quickly. The Tartarus Titans are controlling the pace of this one. The Camelot Kings are on the back foot 100%. Generally, when the Kings play the early, it's about controlling the mid camps, and it's controlling these Scorpions, and so far, they've struggled to do both.
They nearly were able to get one before the Titans take it away. And now, finally, maybe we'll get a chance to talk about Variety on this Artio here, Miff. Talk to me a little bit about just what this pick brings, because we already saw what Yarkor was able to do in our previous set. Big animated player cam moments there from him as well. The ability to sustain yourself and not only your team in these fights, I don't think can be understated.
Yeah, I think Nika actually worded it perfectly on the desk inside of that set. Artio is just the new age magical King Arthur. She has so many abilities, great ability to chase out inside of these engagements. The CC lockdown is absolutely ridiculous, not only from point blank, thanks to that bear form stun, but also at max range. Druid Stance third ability, going to find those roots and slows very easily for your team. And Artio is kind of deceptive in that you're not generally trying to itemize against the healing inside of her kit. That first ability, the Druid Stance, though, heals for a lot. In the late game, heals everyone for about 300-400 if you're able to hit 3 targets with it, and you better believe Variety's going to be doing exactly that. This guy is going a very tanky build. He's going to be sitting as deep in the backline as possible, and he's got great targets for it. Both Cyclone Spin and Paul are immobile. That's great targets for Artio.
I think Yarkor healed for like 7,000 or something.
That was all in like 2 team fights.
Right, in a couple of team fights in our previous set. Cannot be understated. And so, as this pick starts to get added in a little bit more, we're going to see how teams choose to itemize against it. If the Titans feel, Miff, to your point, like they need to, whether or not they want to or not, because that is a pretty decent investment into what is a pretty quiet amount of healing. Layers with Cyclone Spin and Aurora. It's found Captain Twig here, and too much CC. Captain Twig, no chance. And I guess that's an invade, but the Titans just kind of walk in, and Captain Twig overstays.
Felt like a miscommunication from the Camelot Kings there. Captain Twig does find a 3-man ultimate, but Genetics and Netroid weren't stepping up. They didn't help him at all. Twig drops, wins a Shamash, gets abducted, gets trapped, and gets removed.
Fury for the Tartarus Titans now. It's only Netroid and Genetics in range. Paul can weave in some damage here.
Wow.
A lot of damage onto Genetics. Will Netroid take this one away? No, he won't. And the Tartarus Titans get the Gold Fury and widen up this gold lead. Remember, after 3 or so kills for the Titans, we were in that 1,000 gold mark. Now we've doubled that up here, Miff. The Tartarus Titans in a commanding position in the first 8.5 minutes.
Yeah, they have got great scaling in the late game, by the way. This is not an early game composition from the Tartarus Titans. Artemis and Morgan Le Fay, yeah, those are late game hyper carries, and Aurora is only going to get more and more value from the Scarab's Blessing as that levels up. Layers has done a quietly phenomenal job of just making sure that the rest of his team is able to farm.
Oh, good wall from Genetics. slows down the engage onto himself, but not onto Netrioid, who has to
Wow.
run away. It's Cyclone Spin. He's been hitting them all game. Netrioid, no good on the escape. And Cyclone Spin, great on the damage. 3 kills now in the back pocket of this Artemis.
Good wherewithal from the boys there to realize that, okay, Genetics saved himself, but Netroid's still trying to put out some damage. Let's maybe kill him instead, and that's exactly how it pans out. Cyclone Spin holds on to the third ability just to chase out that dash, and even had it not killed, the slow should have been able to close that gap for him. This is clinical play so far from the Tartarus Titans. These guys are looking very strong.
This is like some of the most action I've seen in just a straight-up 2v2 in a while, right? I mean, it feels like, you know, maybe you get a kill here or there. Oftentimes it's the jungler setting things up. There's just something about the way Aurora and Cyclone Spin have played from minute 1 where the abduct, the dot damage, and the early first blood for this duo lane has just fueled the fire. And Aurora and Cyclone Spin are doing their best to keep pushing that advantage. Cyclone Spin has his ultimate, and so that could lead into another kill onto Genetics or Netrioid. Both Genetics and Netrioid do have beads, though. So that's what you're going to have to be wary of. Later on in the game, though, Myth, it's kind of 2 totally different mindsets on these hunters, isn't it? Where one is somewhat immobile, but great in the team fights with the boar. Whereas Netrioid a little bit more mobile, but has great map utility as far as that ultimate goes, and so that's going to be a big difference maybe as late-game team fights start up.
Yeah, I think it will be. It's whether or not Netrioid is able to utilize that ultimate to create situations in which he's just outnumbering his opposition. Cyclone Spin is but a man, can only walk where he needs to go, has to use his feet, whereas Netrioid can fly across the skies. That said, inside of the team fight itself, if both hunters are there, I would argue that they've got similar levels of mobility. I mean, sure, you've got the dash from Netrioid, but the Vengeful Assault from Cyclone Spin also gives you a ton of movement speed. You've got great CC immunity inside of your ultimate to make sure that you've got some survivability as well. So I'm excited to see how the Camelot Kings elect to utilize Netrioid in particular. As of right now, Pyromancer being the only neutral objective that is feasible in this point of the game could create a situation where the Camelot Kings can force a scenario in which they just outnumber the Titans, but it seems like the Titans are privy to it, and they're going to go ahead and pull the Pyro now.
It's interesting. We're seeing a lot of Apollo here this weekend. Netrioid can rotate into this if there is a fight brewing. Tartarus Titans have pulled the Pyro, and they will not secure the Pyro. The Camelot Kings have walked in and stolen it away, and it looks like that's all they've come for. And the Tartarus Titans won't have a chance to answer back. So now 2 separate times, one more impactful than the other. The Scorpion stolen away by the Titans earlier, and the Camelot Kings, namely Captain Twig, able to get away with one there.
Yeah, the Tartarus Titans just didn't put enough respect on the Kings' ability rather
decent little gold
to
spike
steal
too.
away these objectives. Yeah, that was much needed for the Order team here. This was starting to slip slowly out of control, but the leads lie where they have lied the entirety of this match. Tartarus Titans' duo lane is incredibly strong. 2 levels for Aurora out of support and 1 for Cyclone Spin in the Hunter role. The Tartarus Titans legitimately don't need to feel pressured to maintain their lead. As long as they can come into the late game from even, I think their composition far outscales what the Camelot Kings are bringing. So instead, it's up to the Kings to close up this gap and create one in their favor.
Specifically with Morgan Le Fay, I think a lot of conversation around her and her late game scaling. Paul, of course, very good at this pick. We've already seen a lot of damage connect on to Genetics around a Gold Fury defense. Chronos Pendant into Soul Gem, so there's going to be plenty of burst there. Don't think you can scoff at, though, the scaling of this Raijin, though, Myth, into the late game. We've seen plenty of Raijin so far this weekend. And I think Aggro when he was talking about it, sort of mentioned when it's Divine Ruin and then Soul Reaver eventually comes online, that is just a massive power spike, and you have to respect VMT as well as this game goes on.
Yeah, I think Raijin is one of the better scaling mages, but it's just so hard to stack him up against the likes of Morgan Le Fay as well as Artemis, and I think it's more so that Artemis that I have my eyes on.
Sure.
Cyclone Spin has been a consistent pillar for the Tartarus Titans, and in very recent weeks has shifted his playstyle. Felt like towards the beginning of this phase, it was passive.
Captain Twig is in behind. He is blinked in range. A roar inside the winds of Shamash, being pulled back into the center.
Watch out.
Shards of Ice. Scarab's Blessing is on to Aurora, but look at how much damage Captain Twig has taken in the meantime. Netrioid doing his best to back on away from this fight, but Layers can wreak some havoc on the front line, and it's Paul who picks up the first kill in this engagement.
Genetics still on the retreat, has Paul on his heels. Big man Tings just creating space.
Hit him with the Paul, gets a little damage into Genetics, but not nearly enough And Genetics will live on. It's a team collapse for the Tartarus Titans, and it's at a great time if the Oni Fury stands.
If you're going to step up into a lane that has a Khepri in it, you better hope that that ultimate isn't down because the return kills are there and the Oni burning quick.
Variety in range. Oni Fury dropped now by the Tartarus Titans, and the half HP Ardio will have to get out of the Fury Pit here. Benji playing Separator. Captain Twig off to the side as well. No chance to steal, but the health bars are low. Is there a re-engagement? The answer is no.
There's no way the Camelot Kings can stick around inside of this engagement. I mean, maybe Captain Twig could try and isolate Paul here, but the Dragonflight is strong, as displayed here. Yeah, Twig, maybe don't step up to Paul. 3 levels down, you're going to lose out on 50% of your HP just for thinking about it. The Tartarus Titans are commanding this game. Phenomenal rotation from Layers is what sets that all up, by the way. I mean, that tether was Category 5 level natural disaster stuff. I mean, there's nothing that the Camelot Kings were able to do once they had already stepped up to the tower line against the Tartarus Titans. They were just out of position and tried to retreat, and, well, just wasn't in the cards.
If you think the game plan for the Titans is pylon Netrioid or what, this Apollo is 1-4 right now, was just a moment 2 levels behind Cyclone Spin. And so Netrioid's going to need some time now to get these wheels spinning over here on the left side. Cyclone Spin, gets Ichabale, Odibo, and Chin Size. This Artemis is huge. 3-1-2, and so 1.5 level lead. But no surprise, maybe, that we're seeing all this pressure continue to funnel its way to the left for the Tartarus Titans, because that's where they've got their big lead.
Yeah, I'm not certain that they came into this game, the Titans that is, with the strategy of shutting down Netrioid. I think it's Netrioid died on first wave.
Let's keep doing it.
Yeah, let's keep doing it to him, and well, can't argue against it. It's been working out incredibly well for them so far. Cyclone Spin is really starting to approach that late game phase quickly, and take a peek at Aurora's relic slots. Meditation picked up. Yeah, that's saucy. You don't see it too often. Now has pulsing mana regeneration as well as HP regen for anybody nearby. It's going to help them out a lot inside of these elongated objective fights, is what I would say if these objective fights have gone long. They have not.
A little bit of healing maybe helps out the Tartarus Titans. Boar flies on through from Cyclone Spin, and that is a gross amount of damage onto Genetics and Netrioid. Both have to back away, but there is no ultimate now for Cyclone Spin. Greater Scorpion's going to get dropped here by the Camelot Kings. Fury still a few minutes away from respawning, so the Tartarus Titans just exerting pressure. Here's the bad news if you're the Camelot Kings. You've lost your tier 1 on left. The minion wave goes down as well. And suddenly there's just going to be these wide open wings on this map for the Titans to operate.
Yeah, and we got a good look there of the Camelot Kings mentality. There was a 5-man grouping just maybe 60 units away from Cyclone Spin and Aurora both, who are standing on a tier 2 tower, and, well, as Aurora and Cyclone were able to win the 2v2 inside of the duo, the other 3 members of the Kings say, I don't want any part of that. I'm not stepping into that lane, and that's with the Caledonian board being down already. Cyclone Spin is a problem that nobody has the answer to right now on the Camelot Kings, and if the Kings want to win this match, someone's going to have to come up with one.
Yeah, especially if Cyclone Spin keeps going with this kind of tank shred style of build. It's so hard to get on this Ardio and find meaningful damage, but we've mentioned some of the potential for Variety and maybe even Captain Twig or Genetics as this game goes on to potentially. Potential is the name of the game now for the Camelot Kings, but it's the Tartarus Titans in the driver's seat. And what an ascension this Tartarus Titans roster has had, huh, Miff, where you make some changes, you bring Layers in. I mean, I think it's fair to call their win yesterday an upset over the Jade Dragons. At this point, though, every remaining team, and it's Leviathans in the finals versus Camelot Kings or the Tartarus Titans, any remaining team here has a great shot, and I think that speaks well to how the Titans have been playing.
Cyclone Spin can't be allowed to stand here, man. That is just gotta be illegal.
They just kind of left him.
Can't use his ultimate. He can't do it. He can't ult out of lane because he's going to lose 60% of his HP bar because Cyclone Spin is never further than like 40 units away from this guy. Someone from the Camelot Kings has to rotate over and put Cyclone Spin in check. You don't have to kill him. Force the ultimate. Strip the beads. Take away an Aegis. Do something to slow this guy down right now because he is generating infinite threat. He is controlling your ADC, he's removed your global presence, and he's scaling better as well. Somebody has to deal with them, and the Camelot Kings are adverse to it. They have decided, it's an active decision at this point, that they're going to let Cyclone Spin do whatever he wants, and I just don't see how that works out for him.
I wonder how the Camelot Kings answer this impending Gold Fury, because the Tartarus Titans, as you have just mentioned, on the left side of the map, basically have free reign. The Camelot, I feel like they've showed up a couple times, but then the Tartarus Titans say, hey, we're here too, and the Camelot Kings, well, they immediately turn around and leave. So with the Gold Fury up soon, it'll be an interesting call from the Camelot Kings if you want to step forward for that. Opportunity maybe to trade out for the Pyromancer, but I think you've mentioned, Myth, that this is where the Kings need to get some stuff going for themselves. It's not like they're going to be feeling so much better in the late game that this pace is great for them. Maybe you look towards right, but Benji's in a really strong spot now with his build. I'm not sure where you look.
Yeah, goose egg so far for both soul laners inside of this one who have not been allowed to participate in the game. Keep your eyes on them, though. They are approaching level 20 quietly. Have been just farming up for the last 20 minutes. Benji, level 19, the Varieties 18. As they start to rotate out, that should spell the intentions of both of these teams. And the Kings, they don't want to defend the Gold Fury. Instead, it's a trade.
At least they're able to get the Pyromancer, not going to get stolen away by either team this time. Camelot Kings are in range of the Gold Fury, and it's Variety who is trapped in place. The Gold Fury has been dropped, and the Tartarus Titans take down the Fury and Variety in tow. An immediate rotation towards mid. This could be a risky FG call, but it's going to be a grouping, maybe some pressure on the tier 1.
I'm not even sure if I qualify it as risky. How expensive was that kill for the Titans? It was just Paul's ultimate. That's all they have to expend. Caledonian Boar is doom inside of the team fight. Camelot Kings, they're fighting into a hefty disadvantage.
Tartarus Titans are playing well here in game 1, and this could be the fight that breaks everything wide open. Genetics kept in place by Aurora. Netroid weaving some damage in as best as he can, but Benji and Aurora have both taken a little bit of damage as well. It looks like, Myth, the Camelot Kings have shown enough faith to keep the Tartarus Titans at bay.
Winds of Shamash is used, and it is not
watch
good.
out.
This is a real fight.
Netroid, where are you going to go? Genetics is in the graves. You're already fighting at a disadvantage. Netroid stunned in place, and no way Lair survives. He's going to chase down Netroid, who procs the Scarab's Blessing, and it's another 2 kills for the Titans.
Yeah, Meditation's ticking up, by the way, so everybody's healing up on the side of the Titans.
Slow.
Netroid, rest in peace. Paul had time for his ultimate to come back up. Credit for the double kill. Camelot Kings are playing so antsy right now. I mean, the Winds of Shamash has dropped. It hits nobody, and for some reason the Kings decide that's our go button anyway.
It's been Variety with any sort of steal potential on all the objectives up to this point. He has taken a whole lot of damage. He cannot move. Neither can Layers nor Cyclone Spin. And the Tartarus Titans will add another. Now Paul and the rest of the squad turn their eyes towards the FG. No one from the Kings in range. It'll be a full 5 Fire Giant stack for the Tartarus Titans in game 1.
6,000, now 7,000 gold in the lead. Fire Giant on 5 members, and take a peek at the defensive relics of Cyclone Spin. They are still up. I'm not sure he's had to use them a single time so far this game. Maybe an early beads off of that first death. That was inside of the laning phase that he falls down. Yeah, it's been a while since anyone's been able to step up to him inside of the lane. With so many towers still standing, I think the Camelot Kings find themselves in a position where they essentially have to put up some sort of defense on these tier 2 towers. Any more bleed from here? I mean, you've bled out.
Yeah, 16,000 damage for Cyclone Spin in 22 minutes.
Crazy.
Feels all right. And then Paul just behind with 10,000. The carries. Yeah, right. Just behind. 6,000. You know, he's real close. Point being that the Tartarus Titans carries are playing so well here in game 1. Then, of course, the frontliners. I think this is a team effort that have gotten the Tartarus Titans to this point. And Myth, when I said the Fire Giant call would be risky, this is good revisionist history here for me. I meant for the Camelot Kings to step up and try to defend, right? Because it does feel like this game has been broken open just a little bit here. And this is maybe all the Kings can do. Let's send Apollo and Gilgamesh to the right side and try to find ourselves a win condition. That's going to be the case here, opening up the right Phoenix.
Layers, though, is forced to back, and he might be just enough to stop this push. Captain Twig's positioning.
Oh, never mind. Cyclone Spin is going back, as well as Aurora. Looked like for a moment the Titans were going to hang around, see if they could push their advantage in mid. Are you going to get collapsed on now, though, is the question. Yeah, Netroid is bailing himself out, but Captain Twig doesn't have that same ability after that. And so some damage from Paul, connects from range. The last bit does not sidestep from Captain Twig, and then the blink to maybe secure his escape here. Netroid, oh, he's one-shot by Cyclone Spin in the mid lane. And I guess he chose to drop down there out of the ultimate, and now you're without your Hunter for 45 seconds.
Here's the thing, Netroid. You haven't won that 1v1 for 24 uninterrupted minutes. I don't understand how you think that it's the right time to step to Cyclone Spin just there. No, that does not work out for you, and as you highlighted, 35 seconds with your Hunter in the Grayscale. Fire Giant still on 5 members for over a minute and a half. This could be potentially the last fight.
And they, being the Titans, have some important ultimates ready to go. Benji has walked forward and abducted anyone that he's chosen throughout this game. Unfortunately, it's Variety dealing some good damage to him now. Big Man Tings uses the Taiko drums, and he's got some good damage into the back line of the Tartarus Titans. Shards of Ice as well will slow down this push. Cyclone Spin left untouched up to this point. A wall from Genetics separates out this fight, but Variety is being melted through, and who else but Cyclone Spin is on the board. The Tartarus Titans get a second. Cyclone Spin with the double, and now you're back and respawning for Big Man Tings and Netrioid, the Titan being siege. And Myth, it looks like the Titans have started off this best of 5 with a win.
They sure have. This is burning quickly. Netrioid trying his best.
No, and his best is not going to be enough here, Mifflin. Benji will burn him on down, and the rest of the Titans turn their eyes towards the Titan. Game 1 to the Tartarus Titans.
And it was convincing. Make no mistake, this was not a fluke. That was a concentrated effort of the Tartarus Titans. Sure, you could say first blood in the duo lane on first wave, probably not going to happen all the time,
think,
but
no.
I don't know, man. With Cyclone Spin playing like that, with the entirety of the King saying, okay, Cyclone, do whatever you want, man. I mean, yeah, you're the GOAT, whatever. Someone's going to have to address him. You can't let Cyclone Spin have 2 games like that.
I can't believe this is the Titans we're seeing. I mean, think back to Phase 1 and even the first half of Phase 2, a team where you're like, all right, they're playing a top 4 team, probably going to vote the other way. These guys are now maybe favorites to win this set if they're going to keep the pace up that they did here in game number 1. The Camelot Kings, they receive the first punch here in this best of 5. Can the Titans go back-to-back in game 2? Well, you got to stick around to find out.
Hey there, Smite fans, Aggro here. Look, every single year, the SPL just keeps getting better. Season 7 was incredible, and in Season 8, I'm sure our players are going to take their game to the next level. But in order to do that, they're going to need the best gear they can get their hands on. And that's why I'm so excited to announce the title sponsor for Season 8 of the SPL is Alienware. Yeah, that Alienware. Our players are getting the best of the best in computer gaming. These Alienware Aurora Ryzen Edition PC setups are insane. Not only will these be the PCs that the players will compete on once we are in studio, but Alienware is also providing one for each player at their home setup to make sure their practice is as good as possible. Now let's get down to brass tacks. The specs on these Alienware Aurora Ryzen Edition desktops are amazing. An AMD Ryzen 9 16-core processor.
That's a lot of cores.
That's plenty of processing power.
That's a lot of plenty of cores.
If you want to stream, this is the way to go.
I know a lot about my cores, so. I mean, Pilates, right?
64 gigabytes of DDR4 RAM.
What? Is that true?
That is true.
I mean, this thing has 64 gigs of DDR4 RAM.
Which you can do literally anything with.
Literally anything.
I've never had more than 16 gigs.
That's quadruple the amount I have at home.
And one of the hottest commodities in the PC world, an NVIDIA GeForce 3090 graphics card.
Insane how much better this is than what I have.
The best graphics you really need, Ultra, of course.
Content's gonna look good.
And what's the point of all the power if you can't see it? Players will also be using the Alienware 25-inch 240 Hz monitors.
Man, when I load into scrims with this bad boy, I'm gonna feed so hard. And it's gonna be in perfect picture quality.
We are so excited to be partnering with Alienware for Season 8 of the Smite Pro League. And the best part is, this VIP treatment, it's not just for the pros. You too can get the best possible Smite experience. Just go to smitegame.com/Alienware and use code SMITEAW to get special discounts on some of Alienware's best products. Thanks again to Alienware. Make sure you're following them on Twitter and Instagram. That's at Alienware on both platforms. And you can join their community at alienwarearena.com.
Welcome back to the desk here for our second set of the day and getting ready to go into Game 2 between the Camelot Kings and the Tartarus Titans. And a special shout out to our title sponsor for the Smite Pro League, Alienware, for making sure to bring us all kinds of nice goodies for not just us here in the studio, but for our pros at their own home setups. You can go to smitegame.com/Alienware. Use code SMITEAW to get yourself some discount codes and coupons towards some of that amazing gear like the Aurora Ryzen 10 desktop or the 240 Hz 25-inch monitor of your own. Thank you again at Alienware for sponsoring us here at the Smite Pro League. J-Mac Tucker joining me one more time, Hurrywin and Taco here, getting ready to go into game number 2. And look, we were talking so much about the mid 2v2, the mid 3v3. We forgot about the tried and true 2v2 of the duo lane that just exploded for the Titans at the start.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't seen a lot of action in the duo lanes, I think, lately, so it's definitely interesting to see some early kills over there. I don't think the Kings expected to die with Apollo Ymir duo lane. I think they expected to win that lane, so I think that was a pretty big disaster to see them fall so early on.
It was kind of crazy, too, because once Cyclone Spin got that first blood opportunity in the duo lane, it was just so difficult for Netroid to ever try and recover it, and for good reason. It's an Artemis, and whenever you get any sort of snowball potential and you have the ultimate protector, in a sense, with that Khepri, it just opened up so many different initiation options for the Tartarus Titans. And even when we saw Twig trying to be proactive, same thing for Variety and Genetics even, they were just immediately shut down and counter-initiated. And a big part of that, I think, was just due to the fact that even if the Camelot Kings had a nice initiation, they just didn't really have the follow-up damage they needed because their carries were just too far behind.
That Artemis drop right there at the Fire Giant was something that I was talking with Hurry when we were in the break room watching that. And that was probably the worst case scenario for him to get caught because he was caught on the ring, then had a lava pool spawn under him, and then he also had all the damage coming from Cyclone and Paul just peppering right back at him. And one thing that for Variety you kind of highlighted over towards him is he's just kind of showing up late towards these objectives.
Yeah, well, ultimately the Kings just sort of fell behind. They made a desperate play in the duo lane to try to get a kill on Aurora Cyclone. That didn't necessarily go their way, and they were kind of behind on the downhill ever since then, and they kind of ended up in a situation where they were trading objectives, and Harry found himself kind of contesting solo a couple objectives that were probably already gone, which I think is not the best.
Yeah, it's also just rough too, because for Tings, whenever you get a Raijin pick, you imagine, okay, we've got Raijin, we've got Gilgamesh, we're going to be the ones controlling everything through the mid jungle, and the problem is, again though, Netroi dying when he did, it just made it impossible for the Camelot Kings to really divert that attention focus back over to the mid lane jungle area. It just really all weighed upon Netroi just not really being able to be really a player in this match even, but that's just a classic case scenario, I think, at the competitive level of how punishing it actually is when you suffer those early deaths.
Yeah, a lot of the matchups that we've seen so far have been centric around that mid 2v2. Try and get your jungler there, get a first blood on the enemy mid, and now you have a nice little advantage, but when it goes over the dual lane, it throws off your pathing as a jungle. We'll see what adjustments can be made in picks and bans for game number 2. Camelot Kings taking the first selection after their loss against the Titans game 1. What kind of changes do you think the Kings maybe need to make in this round of the picks and bans?
Possibly looking to solidify a better hunter there for Netroid, because Cyclone's already made it clear he's willing to play as aggressive as he needs to try and basically chokehold one side of the map, because if you can have that level of control over the dual lane, then it's just so much easier for your mid jungle to kind of be free to just decide, okay, do we want to rotate? Do we want to look for an early objective maybe? And that was the other case here for the Kings. I just don't think that they ever really had a whole lot left in the tank, at least with their game 1 draft, to really recover.
Yeah, I'm going to be interested to see if he is going to be able to get his hands on his Rama. That's what he's looked most comfortable on, and it was banned previously, so we're going to see here if it does end up getting banned. Again, this game, I do think that, there it goes. And honestly, I think that, Netroid needs to look better in this next game. He needs to look comfortable, and his team needs to help him get to that spot. This last game, they had the Osiris jungle pressure, and that kind of stopped any attempt at any kind of early gank they could have put against the Titans duo lane, and I hope that the Kings maybe look to take the Osiris away here. I think that will put them in a much better spot pressure-wise and map-wise, so we'll see what they do.
So maybe somewhere in this top 3, try and look to get Netroid something a little bit more comfortable than that Apollo. Izanami has kind of been his second go-to when the ROM has either been picked from him or banned away from him. We'll see if they elect towards there. But instead, Genetics wants to go with one of his old premier picks here with the Khepri. Was taken away from him last time around by Aurora. Now he's got a chance to see it, wants to have it back for himself.
Kind of bold, though, to first pick Khepri outright, because Khepri, I think, probably one of those picks where you definitely want it to be more vague in a composition, just because when you take it this early on, it's not like Tartarus Titans in game 1 where they took the Artemis and the Khepri as the first two. It's just when you take Khepri, it makes it a lot easier for the enemy team to basically build a plan around handling that revive early on. I think control through the Caledonian Boar is going to be already a strong introduction, and they could also look to just take that Osiris yet again 4 layers, or just leave it as a flex pick in general, because we've also seen Benji run it.
And so far in the last 6 games that Genetics has played, he's played Ymir in 3 of them and Khepri in 3 of them, at least up until the playoffs. Just right now with it is able to get there. But his last 3 Khepri plays have been 3 victories. He went 1-1 and 20, 0-1 and 11, and 0-0 and 9 with it. So pretty strong performance of this Khepri. We'll see if he can make anything with it. But the Titans, they're able to pick up something that really helped them start out that duo lane so strong by grabbing the Artemis and putting Paul back on the same pick he had last time with Morgan Le Fay. How do you feel about a top 2 Morgan Le Fay?
I think that they decided it was a big part of why they ended up winning the first game, and they want to make sure they get it this top 3, because I think it'll probably get bottom 2 banned. I think it did look quite strong. I think once he kind of got online, he has a lot of poke with that range on his 3. I think that was making life pretty miserable for the Kings once they got behind. I kind of like it. I think it kind of potentially shut down the Gilgamesh pick too. I think they showed its strength into that pick as well, so we'll see how it works out.
Going with a little bit of semi-global presence of their own. Or I shouldn't even say semi, it's full-on global presence with this Chernobog locked in for the Camelot Kings. You think maybe this is the answer that Netroia needs?
Definitely a smart response from the Kings, because in game 1, that was the 4th ban that the Titans actually opted for. So having Netroid on a pick that I think has kind of been his secondary default. I know that we've seen him on the Izanami as well, but I think that he has definitely looked a little bit better on the Chernobog, and Chernobog arguably a little bit more safe as well, has a little bit more aggressive opportunities as well against that Artemis, because his 1-2 combination with that Crystallized Curses Fish Barrage is very nice, since Artemis isn't as mobile as some other hunters, so you can just get early poke out opportunities. But seeing the Erlong Shen paired alongside this Morgan Le Fay, I am noticing a lot of counter crowd control, which I think is always going to be important when dealing with the likes of this Khepri.
I mean, as a Morgan Le Fay, one thing that Mifflin loves to highlight with this god, and I'll get his one quote in here for him, the unreactable CC of this Dragonflight. How hard is it for this Osiris to really kind of dive against this Morgan Le Fay, Hurry?
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you, I actually really like that matchup as the Morgan. I think the Osiris, you know, he does almost all his damage in melee range of you, or he wants to be. And she's very good at getting him off of her. I think that matchup is generally not great, and I think the Titans have also matched the jungle pressure with the Erlang here. I think that's the only thing that comes close. So I think they've kind of hit all the check marks here in what they want to do in the Titans draft.
Look at the response of the bans for the Tartarus Titans. They take Raw and Kukulkan away, kind of some of the homage to some of Big Man's earlier performances of the season, and a couple of recent shots there. We did see the Kukulkan come out from him previously. The Kings are going to go ahead and ban away Terra and Cerberus, who have been two of the top bans and picks as of recent for it. Tartarus Titans, though, they're looking for their dual lane, they're looking for their solo, and well, they'll lock in at least one of those with this Ardio that's, again, made it kind of to this latter half of the draft.
Hard to complain when you get a 4th pick Ardio on your side, especially for what the Camelot Kings have opted for. As far as Big Man is concerned, though, we've seen him run Hera, we've also seen him with the Discordia, and I think that either of those options could be really interesting just because of the fact that there is a possibility, I think, for a Disco especially to maybe kind of lock down this Erlang, Morgan Le Fay a little bit better for the Osiris, but it is Tings, and he's a little bit of a wild card sometimes in the mid lane.
Yeah, I'm not really sure what he's going to look for here. I think, yeah, like you said, the Hera, I'm not entirely surprised to see that. I don't know if it's the best pick here. Hera's notably good into some of the more immobile mages, just because she has a really good matchup just being able to drop the Argus on them and pressure them out in the mid lane. I think it is paired up well with the Osiris in the jungle here. I think it's paired up well with the Khepri. I'm happy to see Netroid on something he's comfortable on. I think the Kings draft looks like they're in a more comfortable spot for what they want to do, and they maybe responded properly here.
I'd say so, as this is kind of one of their go-to combos that they've been able to pull off a few times. The Hera Khepri. Typically, when you've paired these two together for the Kings, it's been successful, but sometimes you take one little piece of the puzzle, namely the Khepri, away from it. The Hera sometimes kind of falls to the wayside for it, but getting both of them in, the Camelot Kings have looked good with this pick so far, and I think it matches up here, talking now that this Fafnir's been rounding out the draft for the Titans.
Really love this Fafnir pick for the Titans. I think it kind of just brings everything together as far as the carries are concerned, because that Coerce, always an important asset in terms of just having a little bit more objective shred favoritism. I like it, especially with the Erlang Shen and the Artemis. And not only that, but when you look at Fafnir, I feel like he's probably one of the better supports at kind of just harassing the likes of a Hera, and the backline could also pose a lot of issues against Chernobog, because if you catch him before he actually gets into darkness, well, he just loses out on his dash entirely. He can also look for the transformation, waiting it out essentially for that Chernobog to come outside of the wall.
We talked a little bit about the Morgan Le Fay versus Osiris matchup coming from the jungle. How does the Hera versus Erlang Shen matchup kind of go?
You have to not die early. I think that the Erlang has a lot of kill potential, and this Hera is going to really have to respect where the Erlang is playing in the early game. You're really susceptible to an early death from a blink before you have your vision up and before you kind of get your feet settled on the map. I think once you get going, though, Hera CC, Argus are very effective against Erlang, so I think he just needs to play a survival game.
Isn't that always the hope, though, as a mid lane, is you just pray that you don't die before those first 5 levels hit whenever those junglers pop into lane. You just want to make sure that you got a little bit of survivability. Before we hop into the game, which way do you think those ones going, Taco?
I like the adjustments from the Camelot Kings, but I think overall Titans have a lot of damage.
Well, we'll see if the Titans can continue their streak, or maybe the Camelot Kings can put themselves on the board. We'll have to go with the casters to find out.
Game number 2, really important here for the Camelot Kings to stem the momentum that the Tartarus Titans would have if the Titans get back-to-back wins here in this best-of-5, having to win 3 straight against any team. But this Tartarus Titans team would be a tall task, Miff. And the Camelot Kings have drafted something a little bit different here. Big man Tings on the Hera and Netrioid. Still some global pressure, but it's the Chernobog this time. And they'll get the Khepri over for genetics as well.
I think the most important adaptation for me personally is Captain Twig on this Osiris. I mean, the Des highlighted that Layers on the Osiris was able to crush a lot of that early game aggression, a lot of those early rotations that the Kings were sending over to deal with Cyclone Spin on this Artemis. Now that you've got the Osiris, the ball's kind of in your court. You need to send somebody over to shut him down, because I said it last time, you can't have Cyclone Spin have a breakout performance like that 2 games in a row on the same pick. Now equally immobile, but doesn't have the Scarab's Blessing, doesn't have the Osiris create space. I think it's high time somebody shuts this man down.
Yeah, if you're just joining us, first off, where have you been all day? Second off, Cyclone Spin got an early kill, or helped out with an early kill in game 1, and then maybe one of the heaviest snowballs off of a first blood I've ever seen occurred on the left side of the map, and the game was over. All through pressure on left for the Tartarus Titans. So avoiding that for the Camelot Kings is going to be win number 1 here. And we kind of talked about this passively, Miff. We didn't really have to see anything out of Layers, did we, in game 1? He had that one nice tether play to get the stun onto Genetics, who overextended, and that was kind of it. The Titans just let Cyclone Spin do their thing. Now Layers on a bit of a different pick here, the Erlong Shen. And there is potential for pressure, isn't there, in the mid lane with a pick like this, something Hurrywin said you got to be mindful of.
Yeah, Big Man Ting's so immobile, doesn't have the survivability of the ultimate, going to be a little while until he gets that shield leveled up as well, so it could be an opportunity for Layers to get involved, but I'm not going to deny the possibility that we see another performance like game 1 from him. If Cyclone Spin just pops off, if Paul gets off to a roaring start, all Layers really needs to do is create space.
Instead, it's Twig getting aggressive early in this lane. Paul slowed, knock up off to the side, and Paul will live. But pressure from Captain Twig is the first bit of jungle pressure we've seen so far here. Similar things can be said about this Morgan Le Fay, but now it's Layers who's blinked into the mid lane. Captain Twig, low on health, low on mana, will escape. Both junglers showing up in the mid lane.
I really like the wherewithal from Paul there. He actually holds on to the Dragonflight for so long, trying to bait Captain Twig a little bit closer to that tower line. Line it up so he can push him in there. Paul, despite being ganked, despite being in a 2v1 situation, is looking to make those solo heroic plays to find first blood. This time does not pan out for him, but if he's playing like that, if he's already looking for plays like that, I'm pretty excited to see how this one pans out. End of the day, though, losing out on the beads, pretty big deal. Paul going to have to play very safe for the near future.
And, you know, we talked about how gank susceptible this Hera is. You know, before you hit level 5, of course, Argus, I mean, even after level 5, because you're still immobile, but Argus will help out a little bit once the ultimate is up for this Hera, for Big Man Tings. I'm excited to see what Big Man Tings can do here, though, because BMT has become a playmaker, a linchpin to this Camelot Kings team and their team fight, as mid laners often are. But a playmaking mid laner like Hera, I think, carries a lot of potential with it. So this is a big game for Big Man Tings to show up and help the Camelot Kings in coming back in this set.
And he's going to have a lot of eyes on him from the Tartarus Titans. Being as immobile as he is on this Hera means that some people like Layers, like Benji, even Aurora, should be able to close gap relatively easily. So it's about how well can he position inside of these team fights, where is he looking to engage, who's he dealing his damage to, and how on point is Genetics with this Scarab's Blessing. I think that's going to be very important going forward. I'm also keeping my eyes on Netroid, legitimately. We know that he's playing these guys with global presence, but wouldn't know it if you just look at the minimap, especially off of Game 1. Didn't really utilize that Across the Sky on Apollo. Going to see a little bit more, at least want to see a little bit more from this Chernobog.
Yeah, that's an uncharacteristically bad game from Netroid in Game 1. You don't see that often.
No.
From really any player at the SPL level, but Netroid specifically, you're not going to get that in repeat games. It was just kind of a snowball that began and got out of control. And so Netroid, a better opportunity now that we don't already have First Blood for the Tartarus Titans to get involved in here in this game. We've seen more Chernobog as of late, and it's been a good pick for a lot of the hunters here in the SPL. Benji's the one on the RDO this time. Variety wasn't able to get much done. Felt like every time Variety walked in Game 1, it was just chain CC onto the RDO and no real chance. Bit of a different look, though, Miff. We've seen plenty of Guardians in solo. Xing Chen, though, the potential to get bullied out, difficult to get the kill on, but come team fight time, definitely impactful with that ultimate.
Yeah, he's got great CC potential, or at least beads burning potential for his team inside of these fights, which any beads that do get burnt, there's great follow-up CC. The Abduct from Genetics, the Root from Netroid, even a Polymorph from Big Man Tings can completely change these engagements. So I'm excited to see Variety get involved, because remember back in Game 1, we didn't really see either solo laner get involved until roughly level 19, like 20-ish minutes into the game. There wasn't much action on their side of the map, and they weren't too keen on getting involved in the action on the opposite side of the map. But you said it already, man. Variety is going to be very hard to kill in this lane, but I don't think he's got really any potential to kill Benji either. It's just going to be a lot of HP 5 for this Jing Shen, keeping him afloat.
Greater Scorpion is still here on left. When I see the junglers building the way they are, Stone Cutting on one side, Icavale on the other, with these auto-attack-centric junglers, there's the potential for early Furies. There's also potential for early aggression. Layers considering maybe an engage on Netrioid, but Captain Twig and Genetics are here to sniff that out. Both supports and both junglers here around this Greater Scorpion, but not really worth dying over. And so the Tartarus Titans disengage for just a moment as the Camelot Kings continue to work on that Greater Scorpion. Gets taken down by the Camelot Kings, and now you do have to worry about that Gold Fury here, Miff. Both teams, if the Hunter plus Jungler combo gets that freedom, could be early Fury on the menu.
Could be. I mean, it's just a lot of consistent damage from both teams. Right now, might give a slight edge to the Camelot Kings towards DPS on these neutral objectives just because of that stone-cutting sword, whereas Layers, Icavale pick up, you're stripping away a little bit of power. Every time you land an auto attack on your opposition means that he's likely looking for the pick. He wants to take 1v1s up against Captain Twig. If he can close gap on a Netrioid, that's a great target for him as well. So the Camelot Kings might be keeping their eyes a little bit more so towards either trying to pick out some of these magical damagers with this stone-cutting sword, or what I'm thinking, these neutral objectives more likely.
Twig's eyes are on right. Blue buff spawns up. Layers is on it, though. And Layers will drop his team's blue buff. Benji just separating things out. There was a bit of a commitment there from the Camelot Kings. 3 sent over to the blue buff. Numbers kind of even out, though, because Cyclone Spin and Aurora have been splitting this wave here on left. And so there wasn't impending pressure from the Tartarus Titans anywhere else on the map. And so Netrioid left at level 8 here. Cyclone Spin also at level 8 here. And Myth in game 1, you know, we were worried about the Camelot Kings because the turnaround, the late game scaling, we figured was at best even with what the Tartarus Titans have. What's your take on this game? Which team in your mind is happier with dead even game 7-8 minutes in?
Oh, that's a nuanced question, Dave. I think the Camelot Kings have a composition that is a lot easier to perform on. It's large AoE CC, it's easy space control with Osiris. Genetics has very clear targets that it's his job to keep alive, Big Man Tings and Netrioid, and the chase down potential is all there. It's easy CC to fill in. I'd say that the Tartarus Titans have possibly and probably the stronger scaling inside of the late game thanks to this RDO pick as well as what Fafnir brings to the team fight, but those are high execution gods. Yeah, Morgan Le Fay, Artemis. Both incredibly high execution gods, by the way. These carries are not easy to play in the team fight phase, so what the Camelot Kings don't have in scaling, they have in what Bobby coined as ease of play, and that's a pretty big deal at these high stakes matches. You want something that you can just kind of let your muscle memory do for you, at least at times, and that kind of frees you up to think about other things. I think the Tartarus Titans are going to play very on point, which can be taxing 2 games in a row.
Yeah, you're right. Artemis is very difficult to play, and that makes my only penta ever in Smite on Artemis all that much more impressive.
You gotta stop.
Look, I might be putting myself down a little bit there. My only penta ever on Artemis. Tartarus Titans will get this Gold Fury here for themselves, you'd think. Netrioid. Whew, caught me off guard a little bit there. Jumped into the wall. Out he goes. No steal potential. And the Titans, we mentioned, Myth, the potential around this early burn and how at the moment it might have been on one side, but Aurora, once you transform, you get that team-wide coerce. And once you group everyone up, you know, you're going to have plenty of damage. The Camelot Kings not able to respond.
Yeah, the Kings aren't, they're just not posing questions to the Tartarus Titans, and the Tartarus Titans felt like they didn't really feel like doing it either until 9.5 minutes in this game and eventually say, all right, well, we got to do something. No kills yet for either squad. No neutral objectives attempted. Might as well poke our head in the door and see if we can.
Blue buff invade here for Genetics and Variety. Nobody's DPSing down the blue buff. Now it does get DPS down, and Variety is able to steal it away. So this one's successful. Feels like Genetics has just been hanging on the right side of the map, though, whereas Aurora is paired up with Cyclone Spin and the rest of the team over on left. So trying to slow down the scaling of this RDO as best as they can are the Camelot Kings. Then at least in the case of this first, or I don't know, what, 5th blue buff, something like that. No, 2nd, 3rd. I don't know. That one doesn't matter. In the case of this blue buff, it goes the way of the Camelot Kings. And so keeping Benji a bit behind is going to be very important because Benji absolutely the type of player, quiet in demeanor, not quiet in play, especially not on picks like this.
You know, you actually hit on something that I'd wanted to talk about. It has been a lot of Aurora sitting inside of the duo lane. It seems like that is the strategy for the Tartarus Titans. They know that Cyclone Spin is most susceptible inside of the early game, so that they've left Aurora with him, just making sure that he's not getting ganked out too much. But that's a double-edged sword, since there's been no action up until this point, really. It's Cyclone Spin suffering, having spent so much time with Aurora. He just now ticks over towards level 11 off the last wave, whereas Netroid has been hovering there for a little while now, so slight XP and gold lead for the Chernobog, most likely. Camelot Kings might be pretty happy with the pace as it stands as of now. That said, now that Aurora's kind of recognized that there's not a lot of action inside of the duo lane, has finally decided to leave and see if he can make something happen elsewhere.
How about Heart Ward Amulet priority here from Aurora? I mean, of course, there's big burst damage by the time the game gets to mid or late for this Hera. Outside of that, what are you looking at? Xing Chen and Khepri? I mean, is that an overextension in your mind in the build department?
I think it's just fine if you're looking to dive onto Big Man Tings. That's the only reason I'm probably going for Heart Ward this early on. You could say, yeah, it's just a triple magical composition from the Camelot King, so you've got more opportunities to benefit from that defense as Pyromancer is pulled out here, and it's actually burning pretty quick when they decide to hit it.
Oh, it's the first Argus of the game, and it's towards Paul, but does not hit Paul. And so Argus now down, lasts a little while, so at least on the map for a little bit here. But it's a bit of a Pyromancer bait for the Camelot Kings. Tartarus Titans don't bite on the bait. Instead, it's just going to be pressure now for the Camelot Kings. Paul's going to have to back away while a little bit of damage tickles in onto that tower. Slight rotation in here from Aurora. The Fafnir to the right side of the map for the first time this game. Variety, half HP, plenty slowed, rooted in place. You're going to need more damage than that to get the kill.
Yeah, and you're going to want to do it a lot more quickly because he's got probably around 90 HP 5 right now. He's essentially a walking stone of Gaia as Pyromancer is being looked at. Good call, Dave. Tartarus Titans.
Thanks, man.
I think they just got it, man. I mean,
I think they do.
So much space created by Benji. No way to walk in.
Yeah, the Camelot Kings start it, leave, and then the Tartarus Titans finish it up. So in a slow game like this, it's the invades, the ebbs and flows, the waves, the neutral objectives that make the big difference. There's not a huge difference in this game up to this point. 1.4K, 1.5K gold in the lead are the Tartarus Titans. So you're going to be happy about that. You know, at least you want to be ahead rather than even or behind. So it's always going to be a good thing, Miff. But hardly back-breaking 13 minutes in.
No, it's becoming less and less of something to talk about as time goes on as well. I mean, the gold lead matters more at the 5-minute mark than it does at the 15, and even less at the 20. And as of right now, we're looking at a pace of match that could erupt at any moment. I mean, one team
Both
fight,
teams like to do that.
Yeah, could very easily change the entire face of this match. But as of right now, that team fight might not come for the next 10 or so minutes. Neither squad is really forcing these engagements. Tartarus Titans are getting the better end of the majority of these neutral objectives as Cyclone Spin is forced to use his ultimate there, but maintains the beads, and the same cannot be said of Genetics, who trades out his.
Feels like that's what we've been seeing in the way of action. A small moment where one jumps in, you know, you're kind of poking and prodding at one another. Someone has to use ult. The other person also has to use something. There's not been maybe a clear-cut winner. You know, maybe with beads on a longer cooldown. Cyclone Spin's happy about that, but putting pressure on Cyclone Spin always going to be good after what we saw there in game number 1. The next Fury is up here. Remember, this is an objective that the Tartarus Titans got quickly last time. There was effectively no show from the Camelot Kings as the previous Fury went down. Benji gets his own blue buff this time, but this time, if it does look like the Kings are at least going to be in range, though Fury not started, Kings won't let this one go down without at least showing some face.
Yeah, it looks like they might actually be the aggressors on it. They do have the ward advantage. They've got the defensive positioning. They can force the Tartarus Titans to try and fight in onto them, and I think the Camelot Kings don't just have the potential to defend it if the Tartarus Titans do start this Primal Fury. I think they've got the onus. They have to defend it because this bleed, although slow, is starting to approach that 2,000 to 3,000 mark. I like to qualify 3,000 gold lead as, okay, guys, something's going wrong here. We need to start to address it. 4,000 is, okay, team fights are going to be a little bit harder. 5,000 is, all right, next team fight, if we lose it, we probably lose the game. That's kind of my general mentality when I was a player, and I'm sure that a lot of them might echo that sentiment. Camelot Kings, now hovering at about that 2,000 mark, maybe closer to 1,500, are in a position where they can definitely fight in, and I think they have to. Primal Fury could spell the beginning of the end.
And Big Man Ting's going Obshard here after Chronos Pendant and soul gems. So you've got early burst and early damage with those first 2 items, then you finally get some penetration in there.
Oh, they're starting.
With the Ob Shard. And they are starting. The Tartarus Titans are starting up the Primal Fury here. It's a transformation from Aurora. Coerce spreads out to the rest of the team. Disarm onto Genetics. Argus drops down onto Aurora. The first big fight of the game that we've got so far. Polymorph, no good onto anyone, and Argus is dispelled quickly. Captain Twig in on the chase down as Netroid ults in as well. Lord of the Afterlife on 2. That's all she wrote, unless there's a catch out here on right.
Variety makes his rotation in, finds Benji and Genetics against 4.
Genetics taunted back in, and first blood, 16 minutes in, goes to Cyclone Spin. Second blood, looking like Captain Twig. If Benji can chase this one down, who am I kidding? It's Variety who's left alone. Cyclone Spin's got a double. More of the same here in game 2, and it's the Artemis heating up.
Captain Twig still trying to retreat, but he cannot outrun a ferret. Layers credit for the 3rd kill in this one, and this is exactly what we were talking about, Dave. The Camelot Kings do exactly what they did in the first game. It was a Hail Mary play instead of that tier 1 tower on the left-hand side that loses them the game, essentially, as Hurrywin calls out. Now it's the exact same thing. Oh, we lost the Gold Fury. We have to get something back. Dives too far into the Tartarus Titans side of the map, loses 3, and now potentially the Fire.
Titans playing like a team that do not want to leave much up to chance. A date with the Leviathans in the finals on the line, and Netroid's got to use his Aegis. Fire Giant goes down with ease for the Tartarus Titans, and what was 1.5k gold has ballooned to 4.6k. It's a 3,000 gold swing. So yeah, not only 3,000 difference, Myth, is what you were saying is the alarm button. A sudden 3,000 swing to build on to what the Titans have had going up to this point here in this game. And this is where the gold really flows. Every single tower still on the map for the Tartarus Titans to take down. That is a lot of gold to expand this lead.
It's going to get a lot worse for the Kings before it gets better, and this is so mentally taxing for the Camelot Kings. Just imagine you're in a game 2 situation, you essentially get goose-egged in game 1, only 1 kill for the Camelot Kings, and now you fight a dead even match for 16 minutes, lose 1 team fight, 3 members dead, Gold Fury goes down, Fire Giant goes down, you've got every tower still standing, so you think this gold lead that has already ballooned to 5,000 is only going to get worse, and they truthfully only made 1 mistake, did the Camelot Kings so far. That has got to really hurt the mentals. We have to keep our eyes on them and whether or not they're able to sick themselves inside of this match. Look at this rotation, though, Dave.
Yeah.
The Kings want Benji.
I wonder what the Tartarus Titans look to do here, because they haven't grouped up as 5 yet with this FG buff. Instead, Benji and Layers will be in a 4 versus 2. Tier 1 tower down on right. Cyclone Spin, or Netroid rather, has ulted to the right side of the map, but Benji not taking that much damage here. This is a big investment from the Camelot Kings on the right side of the map. Can the Tartarus Titans delay those backs? Because right now it's only Genetics who is back in base. A couple other members of the Camelot Kings follow them in. Whirlwind of Rage and Steel for the CC immunity. So Variety is going to get chased down on the right side of the map. Titans unable to get the Fury on the left. Variety will fall here shortly, and it looks like the Titans on left able to survive as well. And there's the chase down and the kill for Benji.
Captain Twig accurately identifies that they have to win this fight on the left-hand side. They need to take somebody's life on this left-hand side to the Camelot Kings and uses the Lord of the Afterlife and gets nothing.
Oh no, Genetics CC'd on up by the Tartarus Titans. Scarab's Blessing popped. Genetics popped and Cyclone Spin on the killing spree. The storybook has been reversed to page 1, and it is the Artemis swinging yet again for the Tartarus Titans.
Second verse, same as the first, if it only takes a little bit longer this time around. The Camelot Kings, with 3 members alive, have to defend against the core 5 of the Tartarus Titans. And where are they, Dave? They're not here. They're not stepping up at all. They know they can't. If they die, they lose their Titan. If they survive, they at least buy themselves a couple of minutes. And the Tartarus Titans, realizing that they can't take the 5 versus 3 in the Titan room proper, decide to walk away, but I think they've taken enough with this Fire Giant power play already, and it's not over. We've got an entire minute left for them to play with a Fire on their belts. Tier 2 and mid, that's an afterthought.
Yeah, I think this Fire Giant power play in the top left of your screen, we're looking at an experience difference right now. I think the gold differential is going to tell a pretty interesting story here for the Tartarus Titans. It has gone up huge, 3.6 thousand gold for the Titans after a couple 4 towers, 1 Phoenix, and probably another tower here on the back end. The Tartarus Titans have blown this game wide open. And the Camelot Kings, Myth, we've mentioned the nuanced question of scaling into the late game.
Kind of lost a little bit of that. No more nuance here.
Yeah, maybe not. I was going to say the Kings are going to have to work on some of that nuance here to kill off the Tartarus Titans with how far ahead they are.
They really do. I mean, the Camelot Kings are not out of this game.
We have to say it, right?
It's a long shot.
Obligated to say that.
It is a long shot from here on out, and Gold Fury is a good step, I'd say.
Yeah, if the Camelot Kings were able to secure it. Gold Fury taken low, and the Camelot Kings do get the Gold Fury. Aurora's transformed. He's thrown right back into the mix.
Still going.
But the cavalry is here, and it's Cyclone Spin riding the horse. Variety back with the rest of his team. They are so grouped.
Good
The
taunt.
Camelot Kings, massive taunt, massive knockup from Layers. And here comes the chase. Around the backside is Benji. And you're caught in the trap with the Ardio. Leap on in from Aurora. Variety with a big root on the back end. Maybe saves the rest of his team, but the Titans pour into the Titan room. Game 2 on the menu.
No Fire Giant this time. They got to do it the old-fashioned way. Camelot Kings with 3, trying to put up a defense.
The Kings have their carries, but the Titans do as well. It's a big engage for Captain Twig, and that's where all the eyes of the Tartarus Titans go. Cyclone Spin weaving in the damage from the backline, but a lot of damage from Big Man Tings is connected, and the Camelot Kings live on.
The Tartarus Titans forced to retreat this time, but not with tails tucked. They are happy with how that fight pans out. 2 for 0, and Fire Giant barreling to the earth. Right now, as we speak, the Tartarus Titans head back to base, heal up, spend some of that well-earned gold, and it's a lot of gold. They find themselves in the lead and immediately are able to go group up on the Fire Giant yet again. The Camelot Kings, and I think you'll see it reflected on their positioning on the map, essentially have to put up a defense on this Fire Giant. If the Titans have FG on that push, that's GG, and the Camelot Kings know it.
Myth, when the Camelot Kings in 1 3/4 games have gotten 1 kill. The Camelot Kings got 1 kill in game 1. And we are 22.5 minutes into game 2, and the Camelot Kings have gotten 0 kills in game number 2. The Titans have outplayed in team fights, it feels like, from minute 1 of game 1, and they show no signs of slowing down here. The Fire Giants, no chance for a King's answer. The best you can do if you're the Camelot Kings is push out these waves, buy yourself some time. But time seems to be running out. Clock striking midnight. 11:59 and 45 seconds reach the clock. Camelot Kings have one more chance to put up a Titan defense in game 2.
So in game 1, it was Cyclone Spin being left alone and a lot of early kills that net the Tartarus Titans a lead. So the Camelot Kings rectify that by taking the path of least resistance. They don't fight at all throughout the entirety of this match, and allow the Tartarus Titans to, instead of killing them, go for the objectives.
Aurora's transformed. Watch for the coerce. Watch for the frenzy. The big red ring means go for the Tartarus Titans. Once they find themselves the opening. Carries with Aurora, Jungle, and Solo over in mid. Phoenix in mid, taken low here. Variety has used his ultimate. Cyclone Spin steps forward. Boar rings out. That's a big loss actually for the Tartarus Titans. Netroid has dropped down in mid as Layers taunts Netroid in under the mid-wave Phoenix. So the Titans using some of those engage ultimates to get in, but they have not gotten in. Big Man Tings drops Argus, and the Titans slowed down for the moment.
A lot of ults used already by the Titans. 4 down on the Chaos team,
There's
but
the
there's
ring.
the frenzy. Let's go.
Aurora wants to go, and he wants to go now. Cyclone Spin will take down the last bit of health on this right side Phoenix, and Netroid being chased on down into the wall. He goes. Beads gone. Aegis up in 20 seconds for the Camelot Kings carry. And the Titans have got what they came for here on right. 1 Phoenix left. Make it 2 as the left side respawns. Titans playing this one slow, playing this one smart.
Mid Phoenix has already dropped so low thanks to the efforts of Layers, though. It's going to be very easy to shut this one down. Variety, the front line, has to play perfect.
Benji blinks forward, gets a stun onto Genetics, but it's an immediate polymorph. Genetics, early scares, blessing. Variety would have loved that one, but he won't get it. Genetics, Big Man Tings, Netroid being controlled by Benji, and Captain Twig has been left alone with the rest of the Titans. Right side gone, mid lane gone, left side Phoenix is crippled, and it'll be finished off here by the Titans. All 3 Phoenixes down, and the Titans 4v5 for 30 seconds.
All the ultimates starting to come back up from the Tartarus Titans, and plenty of time to play with this Fire Giant. 1.5 minutes just waiting on these cooldowns, watching the Tartarus Titans. They know it, Dave. The second these ults are up, the second Aurora transforms into the dragon, that should spell go.
And Frenzy is in 5 seconds here as well. Coerce plus Frenzy equals go, but instead it's Layers who equals go. The Camelot Kings have been engaged on in the back. Cyclone's been deleted by Big Man Tings. The Titan defense looking great for the Camelot Kings. No damage onto the Titan, all the damage into the Titans, and the Camelot Kings live on.
Aurora, Benji, Layers drop low. Paul the furthest away, but Variety is the sole member of the Kings on the chase here. And what can he do? He might be able to delay some backs, but he cannot find the pick on his own. That said, at the end of the day, the Tartarus Titans have still stripped away 3 of the Camelot Kings' Phoenixes. That is 3 lanes having fire minions leaking into their base for the near future. And we're in the exact same situation that we were in Game 1. Just 1 kill so far here for the Camelot Kings, but they did at least find a priority target inside a Cyclone Spin. Finally forced to use his Aegis in one of these team fights, but 10,000 gold, 26 minutes into this game. The Tartarus Titans are still primed and ready to win it. The Camelot Kings, they do a great job defending. Fantastic space control from Variety, just making sure his base stays afloat. Genetics always ready with the Scarab's Blessing on a Big Man Tings or Netruid, whoever it needs to be, but perfect play at this point is only going to net you so much. You've already dug yourself such a deep hole. The Camelot Kings, it's not just 1 more defense. It's not 2. It might be 3, 4, 5 that they have to find before they can start to knock on the door of the Titans.
That is a lot of defenses here, Miff, to keep the Camelot Kings in game number 2. Remember, it's the best of 5. If you lose here, if you're the Camelot Kings, you got to win 3 straight against a white-hot Titans team. Cyclone Spin's beads, look, I mean, they're about a minute off from the cooldown there on the Aegis, so you imagine earlier on in an engagement, Cyclone Spin had to use the beads, and I think Polymorph plus Argus onto Cyclone Spin with no beads equals 1 dead Artemis. And that's all the Camelot Kings needed. Once that objective shred was gone, well, the King's Titan didn't stand much of a chance. Be careful, Captain Twig. There's a lot of damage here between Paul and Benji. An Obshard on the end of a Charon's coin is a lot of percent pen for this late game Morgan Le Fay. And so Big Man Tings has stepped up big for the Camelot Kings. Yeah, top damage in the game for Paul on this Morgan Le Fay. Both mid laners have kept their teams in the game, but one of the mid laners is feeling more comfortable with the game state.
Camelot Kings not going to put up a defense on this Fire Giant. Instead, just going to try and create a little bit of space for these Phoenixes wherever the Tartarus Titans are trying to mount their offensive, or where the Camelot Kings have to land their defensive, which means the rest of the map is going to have to contend on the PvE, and that's all favoring the Tartarus Titans thanks to their enhanced minion waves. 28 minutes in, it is not an enhanced Fire Giant, but it is still on 5 members of the Chaos team, and why not start on the right-hand side and start to work your way through these Phoenixes as they spawn up.
I mean, this is smart. Look, the Titans have been calculated. They've tried to play this one smart, and they've done so well. Why not just everyone group, everyone get in here. We've got Fire Giant, we've got all of our ultimates, we've got all of our actives. Let's use them while we've got them. Left wave is pushed out a little bit. Right side Phoenix gone yet again. Mid lane Phoenix is going to spawn here, but Layers is going to 2-tap it, and it goes right back down. So the Phoenixes that were back are now gone. Left side Phoenix is about to be back. I have to imagine if it's going to be gone, and the Camelot Kings are going to do their best at 1 more Titan defense to keep their hopes alive in Game 2.
And I don't even think they're allowed to let the Tartarus Titans into their Titan room. If they're given that much space, I don't care how many members of the Kings are still alive,
Variety
it'll
agrees.
fall.
Netruid agrees as well. Hammer onto Netruid. That's going to slow down this turnabout. Captain Twig has found the backline. He's found Cyclone Spin. Lord of the Afterlife is massive, and Twig has bought so much space. Scarab's Blessing, perfect from Genetics, but look at Layers. He's killing the Titan. Oh, and it's out of the Tartarus Titans. Won't need a team fight. They just need a jungler, and Game 2 is in the books.
You might have found Cyclone Spin, but you forgot about the jungler hiding in the midst, and he walks immediately in the Titan room and shuts it down. Convincing win yet again.
That is a smaller version of the call that we kind of think got Layers the permanent spot on this roster. Remember Layers? He was in the tryout phase. He kind of ended the game on his own. Why not? I'm an Erlang Shen.
That's why they picked him up.
Everything right, and I'm going to do it again here. We're thinking a team fight's brewing, but an attack speed and attack damage, Erlang Shen just kind of walks in and ends the game. The Tartarus Titans, they've put the Camelot Kings in a precarious spot. Kings got to win 3 straight to play the Leviathans in the finals tomorrow. Can they do it? It's got to start in Game 3, which is coming up next.
Gotta take off my jacket for this one. Oh, dude, this.
No, I know he was supposed to take you out last weekend, but he got busy.
welcome back, SMITE fans. Game number 2 is in the books, and the Tartarus Titans are able to draw themselves up a 2-0 so far and put the Camelot Kings on the back foot. Before we hop in, a shout out to our apparel sponsor, SMITE Apparel, for bringing us all of the SPL merchandise that you see available on our website, shop.smiteproleague.com. You got shirts, hoodies, sleeves, onesies. There's all kinds of things available for you, whether you want to support the team or just support the SPL in general. Go to shop.smiteproleague.com to get all of your SMITE apparel for it. J Mac Tucker joining me, Taco and Hurrywin, as we get ready to go into Game 3 and a breakdown here of Game number 2. And it looks like a lot of case of second verse, same as the first here, Taco.
It's just been a tough go, I think, for this Camelot Kings front line. They have just not really been able to get any solid ground underneath them. They haven't really been able to create any sort of space. And there were also just seemingly some miscommunication instances taking place as well before some of the smaller objective fights. I know at one point in mid lane, Big Man Tinks dropping Argus onto essentially no one, but it seemed as though he was trying to get aggressive with Paul.
Yeah, I think Big Man was really trying to play like that mid matchup of the Hera versus the Morgan, which I think is something that he likes, which is why we saw him pick it. And he tried to overextend to maybe get that ult a few times before some major fights, and then he didn't have it. So yeah, I think we saw the Kings just try to be a little too overambitious in a couple of these situations, chasing out after a Gold Fury. I don't know if you remember that play as well, J-Man.
Yeah, a couple of moments there where it just felt like they were on two completely different books. Captain Twig goes in with an ultimate, finds 2 on the landing with it, and Netroid, who had dove in with the Chernobog ultimate. And as soon as the Twig ultimate lands, we're like, all right, cool, this is a perfect opportunity. And Netroid dashed away, and then later, about 5-10 seconds later, that's when the Camelot Kings decided to go in. So just kind of playing on 2 different pages right now.
And it's tough as well because with Variety rocking the Xing 10 in the solo lane, it's very difficult, I think, to ever really be that aggressive out of solos. So then, okay, where's that attention focus going to shift to? Well, you look at the mid-jungle dynamic, and it didn't really seem as though Twig was really all that willing to try and tackle that 2v2 challenge early on up against the Erlong and the Morgan Le Fay, because Hera may be a little bit weaker in that early game aspect. I guess you'd probably know a little bit more on that though, Harry.
Yeah, no, I mean, overall I think that the game stalemated pretty hard, and it was mostly a farm fest, so fortunately the Hera didn't struggle too much in the early game. There was almost a kill in mid, I think, between the junglers. But yeah, overall, I don't know. I think the Kings kind of got what they wanted. They got to farm out that early game, like I was warning about earlier. She didn't die to the early ganks. I think that more so than anything, the Kings just kind of need to clean up their game plan, get on the same page like J-Mac said earlier, and I think maybe they'll be in a better spot.
It's going to be a tall one here for the Camelot Kings. Not often they go down 2 games. Well, usually in a 3-game set you won't have that kind of issue, but now they're down 0-2 here in picks and bans for game number 3. This is the do or die moment for the Kings. The playoff, it's on the line for them here, Taco. Any kind of adjustments we need to see from them? Maybe they just finally ban this Artemis. It was one of the problems that it kind of got highlighted. Cyclone got off to an early tear in game number 1, then again got in game number 2 and had a similar performance on it.
The problem that I have with the Kings and just banning Artemis outright is that then you just make it even more feasible for the Titans to take another comfort pick like the Chernobog away from Netroid, and we've already seen he didn't really seem like he was all that cozy in the Apollo for the laning phase. I think Chernobog as well, a hunter that can definitely take advantage of some of those laning phase instances, or even just shift Cyclone over to the Izanami. That's another really aggressive 1v1 opportunistic matchup there, and no surprises at all really to see the Titans if they choose to ban away that ROM again, but I'm a little surprised honestly that the Kings have taken this first pick position. I almost wonder if they toyed with the idea of going for second pick purely because of the fact that they have seemingly struggled in these first 2 games.
Yeah, no, well, we at least see that the Kings are banning the Artemis away, which I think was a big problem for them in these previous 2 games. Cyclone just looking fantastic on this pick. We do see the Titans banning away Rama again, so Netroid will be forced onto something else once again. The Kings also banning Erlang Shen in this case, which I think is something that hasn't really been maybe highlighted as much as I notice for myself as a pro player, but I think if the Kings go for an Osiris first pick here, I think that will set them apart in the pressure from the jungle in the early game, and maybe they can be more active than they want to be. They are going to go with the Raijin. I sort of disagree with that. I think if the Titans are going to pick Osiris now, but I certainly don't think it's a bad first pick.
Yeah, Raijin's hard to ever feel like you can really go wrong with such a nice burst mage, but I'm kind of a little bit more in your direction with this one. Leaving open the Osiris for the Titans just means that by default, the Camelot Kings could struggle around a lot of those early mid-harpies, and that's something that you and I were talking about, mostly you pointing out the fact that if you get those first couple of respawns, then you're going to be hitting level 5 prior to the enemy team's mid-jungle, and then you just can decide from there how aggressive you really want to be.
And they've led through the Khepri and the Osiris. So Osiris is going to be going the way of the Titans along with the Khepri one more time. It was there for Aurora in game number 1. The Genetics picks it up for himself as a first pick last time around, but the Kings, their prioritization is towards this Raijin. They want to try and get some mid-early establishment for themselves, and now with these next 2 picks, maybe try and get Netroid something early here, maybe take that Izanami, put Cyclone a little bit further in, kind of just give him something comfort, maybe something that he can have some good repositioning with as well.
I think I'd be a lot higher on this RDO if it wasn't for the fact that there's an Osiris already locked in, because I think that some of that team sustain that RDO can introduce during some of those more stretched out engagements, or even just like these farm heavy matches like what we got in game 2 or the Afterlife. That's immediate anti-heal, and it's also something that can directly force a very aggressive play against this Raijin early on.
With the third lock in here for the Kings, it's Artio and Gilgamesh teaming up for themselves. So they got 2 of their frontliners, and that leaves the Titans open for one more pick. 2 bans and then another pick beyond there. It could be looking at a Hunter now, and maybe that expects maybe some Hunter bans coming from the Titans in the second phase of it.
There is potential again for the Izanami or the Chernobog. I think that they are both really strong assets currently, given the fact that they have a lot of protection. But the Morgan Le Fay, I think, might be exclusively for the fact that Paul has just continued to look fantastic and uncontested on this pick.
Yeah, I mean, I think that he has the liberty to pick a mid laner that might not be the greatest early game. When he has the Osiris jungle, like I pointed out before, he can kind of skate through the early game without having to worry about losing these early neutrals. And I also think Morgan Le Fay transitions very well in the matchup against Raijin as time goes on. He makes it pretty miserable to walk up into the melees and clear the wave. You know, her harass, her fear kind of stops what Raijin wants to do, and she kind of gets the upper hand as she gets items.
Man, we get all the way through here and we completely forgot about the fact that Yamoja exists, and I think everybody did for a moment as she is banned away by the Titans in the second phase alongside the Chernobog to take that one off of Netroid's hands. And when we look over to the flip side, the Izanami we've been highlighting so much in this segment of the Des is taken away by the Kings. So now we're going to be looking just how far deep into this Hunter pool are these 2 Hunters willing to go. You've got both the mid laners locked in, so you don't got to worry about that now. With this Khepri Osiris, you know, what kind of carry do you think maybe Cyclone brings out here, Taco?
The Cyclone is probably just going to look for a lot of early game pressure, and I think that when you see the Hercules, this is kind of a Benji staple, I would say, or it's just one of those things where a Hercules against the RDO, because I'm assuming that this is going to be an RDO in that solo lane position. You want an aggressive Hunter because Hercules is going to be aggressive, able to force a lot of purification beads, and I think realistically, a Cyclone has a lot of different options to get off for here.
Yeah, now neither of the Hunters have been picked, which is sort of rare to see until the final picks here. I'm actually very curious because a lot of the top Hunters are now gone. I think the Kings might go back to the Apollo, although I don't love it with their team comp. Hachiman, I think, makes a lot more sense in this case. We saw Barra do very well with him earlier on today. And that makes me wonder what Cyclone is going to go, because I don't know what he could possibly want with their team comp unless he likes the Apollo too, which I don't think he does.
There's a chance for a Ho Yi. He's made some appearances here and there. Doesn't have the CC Immune Ultimate though, which I know is probably a little bit more desirable, but he's got a decent matchup into that Hachiman as far as the 1v1 is concerned, and I also just like it for the slow potential, but it looks as though he's taking a page out of Panicat's book here with that Danzaburou.
Yeah, he just went for a last pick, so I was curious what he was going for here. They chose to go the Hercules first, so I figured he had to have something up his sleeve, and it's a Danzaburou, which you know I'll be a fan of as a member of the Jade Dragons. I'm glad he picked that. Maybe he'll prove some people wrong about the Danzaburou if Panicat hasn't already done so.
Yeah, Taco, I mean, we don't see this Danzaburou very often. I think Pandacat's really the only person who's kind of playing this guy. I mean, what's really makes this Danzaburou kind of stand out amongst the other Hunters as a last pick here?
I think more than anything else, it might just be that initiation that the Danzaburou can have off of his ultimate. It is a really aggressive style of play, and when you already have a Hercules, when you already have an Osiris, plus that Khepri to kind of just keep you alive through it all, if anything does manage to go south, it's a lot of immediate pressure, I think, to throw into that dual lane, especially against this Hachiman, and Hachiman not going to really be as impactful with that stun off his Aijutsu because he's going to have to constantly worry about that taunt-in feature from Danza's second ability.
What's kind of the win condition here, Hurry, for the Camelot Kings to bring this back? I mean, they're sitting on game number 3, and this is basically one of their last chances for it. They've got to win 3 straight here. What's kind of that bounce back for them in this game?
I just think they need to get their mentals together and they need to play clean Smite. They got a lot of their comfort characters again. I think this time they've once again drafted similar to the first game, and they've got a lot of things that they want to get. I just think they need to stop over chasing, take the little wins when they get them, and just play good, clean Smite like they know how to play.
Just kind of go for that mental reset for themselves. Taco, maybe for the Titans here, what's kind of their win con?
Titans are just going to look to be as aggressive as possible.
We'll see if the Titans can clean sweep this in a 3-0, or the Camelot Kings going to bring it back and keep their playoff dreams alive. Well, we're going to have to find out.
Camelot Kings chose this, remember. They chose that they wanted to play the winner of the Tartarus Titans and the Jade Dragons. And now the Tartarus Titans have come into this set. They've gone up 2-0. The Titans need 1 win out of 3 potential remaining games to go on and play the Atlantis Leviathan. So it is total reset time now for the Camelot Kings. And I think Hurrywind worded it well there. The Kings, we know they can play good, clean Smite, but we have not seen it up to this point, Miff.
Yeah, here's the thing about how they've got 2 kills so far in 2 games, and this is the first seed coming into Game 3. Tartarus Titans were a dark horse with recent roster changes, and now they're kind of doing
they're
it to them.
back to being a dark horse, right? They were dark horse, and they weren't.
And then they were.
And now they are again.
Oh, not anymore. I don't think so. This, again, first seed, Camelot Kings. They're number 1 in the league, and you wouldn't believe it just looking at the play on field. This is interesting. Yeah, Variety better not get pulled. This is a nice little game of chicken, and this time Variety wins. Benji likely would have gotten credit for first blood had that pool connected.
So here's good news, Miff. For I think the first time in 2 games, it's Genetics and Netroid with the lane pressure on left. I mean, it's small, but they are pushed up to that side of the map. And an interesting pick here. So I think Artemis, it's a smart ban. It's finally taken away. Cyclone Spin has torn you apart if you're the Camelot Kings in back-to-back games. You need to ban the Artemis, put him on something else. Other Hunter bans roll through. You save the Hunter pick for the last one if you're either of these 2 teams, and Danza is where we land. And so that's a good thing for the Titans, right, if the pace of the game continues, because Cyclone Spin, as Variety dodges another pull. You always have to pause for those, because you never know.
It's like nail biting,
right,
isn't it? It's like a clincher right there.
But I'm sure Variety's not thinking about it all that hard. But Cyclone Spin, if the pace of the game, especially the pace of that dual lane, is the way that it has been, Miff, that's going to be a good look for the Danzaburou. If you're able to get ahead, all thumbs up.
Yeah, I think that Danzaburou benefits less from a slow-paced game than Artemis does. So if the Camelot Kings try and reprise the exact same performance that we saw in Game 2, where the first 17 minutes were null and void as far as action is concerned, you're probably pretty happy about it if you're Netroid. That said, if Cyclone Spin gets a repeat performance of Game 1, you're feeling really bad if you're Netroid, because Rocket is dead.
Yeah, not good.
That's just how it adds up. That's simple arithmetic for the Danzaburou.
Ooh, Captain Twig sensed the impending jump from the Tartarus Titans and jumped himself out. Blue buff invade looked at for the Camelot Kings on the left side. There's a jump out there as well. Benji secures his blue buff alongside Layers. And that has been a trend, right? Game 1 was all about this dual lane. Everything happened on left. The solo laners were looking around, wondering what was happening by the time that game was over. Since then, though, we saw more pressure from Twig and Layers, I think, on the right side, specifically around these blue buffs in game number 2. And this is going to be a fun matchup, I think, Miff, on the right side of the map. Ardio with the space control, the dominance, the King Arthur-esque playstyle that we've seen. And then Benji on the Hercules that can dominate games once that conditional CC is connecting.
Unfortunately for Benji, there's going to reach a point where Variety has put a point in his 2, and I think we're there now. So in the Druid stance can spawn up that cripple field, and even if Benji on his own tower line finds a pull, cannot follow it up with a driving strike. So a lot of that kill potential is immediately removed. I'd say right now Benji is in fight for your life mode, because that's how favored Audio is in the matchup. Benji's going to have a good deal of sustain, though, to make sure that he isn't fighting too hard for his life. Layers spotted out by a ward there. Is going to be forced back to try and just clear out his own camp.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I think Genetics actually gets credit
Oh,
for that one. That's tough, dude.
Yeah, it's a hammer steal. You don't get to see those all that often. Luckily,
Shouldn't happen.
Luckily, it's a singular back harpy there that Genetics is able to take away. But that's a smart ward, isn't it, for the Camelot Kings? Because the win condition on the left that we talked about was Cyclone Spin, getting some help from Layers and getting off to a good start.
No.
Benji jumped on. Can the Camelot Kings get first blood? Finally, Benji gets a little bit of healing. The last bit of damage rolls through, and it's Captain Twig starting off game 3 with a kill.
And Gilgamesh is a god that Captain Twig has had a lot of success on in recent weeks. I mean, top damage for his team in the last week of the regular season, had great performances here. So strong, in fact, I saw a lot of discourse around Captain Twig saying maybe he showed his hand a little bit too much in the last week before playoffs, but now has to live up to that hand that we've seen, and we know that he's capable of playing at an incredibly high level. With First Blood under your belt, Stone Cutting Sword done already, gotta do something.
Layers blinks forward and keeps Benji comfortable in this lane. Benji doesn't get any of the XP for it, but at least picks up his blue buff as Layers blinked on in, stole that away from Variety. If nothing else, it's not the XP or gold that Benji gained, it's the fact that Variety didn't get it for himself on the other side, and then also having blue buff feels pretty good on the solo lane there. So Benji, unfortunate, required a gank, and so if it's just Variety and Benji, maybe not the same kill potential, but a 1-level lead on an RDO myth, especially with the way the build has started off here for Variety. Great start here in Game 3 for the Camelot Kings, if they can continue to put pressure on the right.
Yeah, I think that Twig can just leave Variety alone. I mean, as long as Variety isn't getting camped by Layers, I'm pretty sure there's just about nothing Benji can do inside of the 1v1 up against this RDO. So instead, I think I'd prefer almost just to see either, if possible, and it's difficult to do, you can keep headed over to right and try and shut down Benji even further, but as he is Hercules, he's going to start hitting his defense stride pretty soon as well. Sustain starting to come through from his third ability means that it's going to be even harder. All right, I'm going to explain it.
He did it again!
I got to explain it. So the hammer from Fafnir does not go through gods. It won't do it. So if you stand in front of the hammer, I'm speaking to you, Tartarus Titans, you block it, and that steal potential is no longer there. This time, Greater Scorpion, a little bit bigger deal than that large Harpy on the left-hand side, but we got to start practicing for Gold Furies and Pyromancers and Fire Giants later on.
We got to start standing in front of Fafnir is the practice that we've got to work on if we're the Tartarus Titans. Finally, some pressure onto Benji. Luckily onto Variety. My goodness, I'm all over the place. Pressure onto Variety, who gets pulled under the tower. Luckily for Variety, not that much damage connects. Paul, we can't say the same for him, as Raiju will tick down this Morgan Le Fay. 1-level lead for Big Man Tings in the mid lane. And this is a matchup now that we've seen a couple times here in this game. But continued pressure on right is something we've wondered if we would see. Aurora blocks the hammer this time, but it's not the type of block you want. Blue buff gets dropped down, and the Camelot Kings, they won't look for a further fight, and they'll just scatter on out. The blue buff steal, not successful. Benji just waiting for a moment to go pick it up.
Aurora's life would have been forfeit. Paul, though, forfeits his beads and his ult.
Big Man Tings, are you going to Taiko drums? No, says Big Man Tings. Paul would have sent some damage that way. I thought maybe, right?
I just really like how you said, are you going to Taiko drums here? But no, not this time, BMT.
You gotta mix it up sometimes, right? I gotta ask him the hard-hitting questions. I gotta ask him the direct cues.
Save it for the interviews.
That's right. Yeah, I'm not doing the interviews this time, so I gotta get my questions in while I can. The answer was no, a resounding no from Big Man Tings. But Myth with the steal away of the, what is it, the Gorp is over here on the left side?
Stop it, dude.
The Gold Fury has spawned here, and that means early Gold Fury, and that's where we've seen these leads in both of these games already. Of course, it started in the duo lane, but then the Gold Fury and then maybe an ensuing kill or two is really where teams have made their money, and by teams I mean Tartarus Titans. And so all the eyes, I think, have to be here on left for this Gold Fury.
Camelot Kings have quietly accrued themselves a pretty sizable lead already, nearly 2,000 gold off of First Blood alone, and I already broke down how the gold works, but 3,000 gold is kind of where you start to worry. So Gold Fury, if it does go the way that Camelot Kings...
How does gold in Smite work?
Okay, so when you have fiat money such as the drachma as used in Smite, generally in Greek culture it is actually just the weight of gold that is the equivalent value of the currency, but here it's actually backed by Ajax.
Sure.
every
what do I
single...
do with it, though, is my question.
Oh, you spend it.
Got it.
To further...
And so the Camelot Kings have extra of that to power them.
Oh, you were asking me like mechanically in Smite, what does gold do? Is that what you wanted to know? Okay, yeah, you can buy items.
Now it's run its course, though.
Oh,
That's
okay.
all right. We were on a bit of a different page there, and that's totally okay. Variety's on his own page here. It's going to be a blue buff attempted invade by himself. Won't do it. But if Variety's already in a point where he's 2v1ing and feeling just fine about it, maybe it does not bode well for the Tartarus Titans as this game goes on. Cyclone Spin is half HP. Hammer there from Genetics. Rocket is going to have to get used, but Netrioid's got the dash, and he's got the stun. Scarab's Blessing, perfect from Aurora. And the root just misses Genetics.
No way.
Thinking he might go in.
I thought
no,
maybe.
Cyclone Spin will live.
This time around, but does lose out on his... No, he doesn't even have to use the beads. It's just the Scarab's Blessing this time around from Aurora that keeps him alive. Let's see if Benji can do the same thing.
Yeah, Benji is going to use the beads, but it didn't CC Immune out much. Let's all pile on the Hercules, and Captain Twig has got his second. The Camelot Kings have matched their total set kills 9 minutes into game 3.
I'm so mad you said it because I really wanted to. I was waiting.
I'm going to rewind
for
here.
the opportunity.
Captain Twig gets his second kill of the game.
And that's going to match up, actually, the entirety of the kills that they've had up in this set to this point. Now, 3,000 gold in the lead are the Camelot Kings. They're just about 2,500. And Gold Fury has got to be on the menu pretty soon here. It's a 2-level lead for Big Man Ting's Fall, just now ticking over to 10, so maybe closer to
Variety's
a level and a
got
half.
2 levels as well.
Yeah, Variety's got 2 levels. It is massive leads across the board for the Order team. So once Variety starts to rotate out, that could spell the beginning.
Tartarus Titans still want to go for this Gold Fury. Netrioid is in range here. Half HP on the Fury. Cyclone Spin's gone in. It's a dash out and beads from Netrioid to keep the Hachiman in the fight. No ult for Netrioid yet. And the Tartarus Titans, they've bitten off too much. They want to get out.
Benji on the right-hand side, and Variety's here with his team. Netrioid, nice slow, but nobody in range to hit pay dirt off of it. Instead, 5 members of the Camelot Kings hovering the Gold Fury. Gotta think the Gold Fury is probably gonna get pulled.
Aurora has the bracer down. Does also provide you a ward, so the Tartarus Titans know that this is going on. Gold Fury down to half, but it's reset by the Camelot Kings. This is a gamble. It is a lead for the Kings, just shy of 3,000 gold.
Benji.
But it is still a gamble to go for a Gold Fury when everyone from the Tartarus Titans is in range. This Hercules Smith has just had 0 impact. Hasn't had the ability to do anything this game. Finds himself level and a half down. And that's a difficult hill to climb when Variety is on a pick that can snowball these games well.
I mean, Benji's essentially invalidated inside of the 1v1. Variety has complete matchup control. I mean, sustain is generally the strength of Hercules in lane. He can just survive a lot of dives, a lot of ganks, has good 1v1 potential because he's always going to get some of that health back. Yeah, Variety does the exact same thing. He also removes your ability to use Driving Strike, which is the core of your offense. So, Variety's had a free pass inside of this one and has been utilizing it incredibly well, as you see on the screen. Pyromancer does go the way of the Camelot Kings, and the gold lead pushes itself closer to 3,500 now, actually, in the lead. And Gold Fury is still available. Camelot Kings still very much ahead. I still think it's a good time for them to go ahead and pull it. Tartarus Titans tried to take it themselves just a moment ago as a Hail Mary play, and just 4 members of the Kings showing up was enough to stop them.
And this is so important for the Camelot Kings. Not only, look, in the grand scheme of the year of Smite, the fact that you're able to bounce back after 2 very difficult losses. You have not won Game 3 by any means yet. But the fact that the Kings have not gotten rolled over yet in Game 3 shows a fortuitous mental. And I think that's important as the year goes on, as you get closer to Worlds. And so, not giving up, not backing down, despite everything going against you in the first couple of games, is an important trend for the Camelot Kings to establish. Gold Fury started up by that very same Kings team. Captain Twig is low here, though. Variety blocked off by a couple members of the Titans. Rocket on in. Netrioid will dash away as well. The Camelot Kings have secured the Gold Fury, but they don't have the health to fight. Big Man Tings will thunder crash over the wall. Genetics will hit a hammer. And the disengage is all but complete.
It's almost a complete inverse of what we've seen up until this point. It's the Camelot Kings being proactive on the map, finding these neutral objectives, establishing a lead almost without resistance. Only 2 kills so far. Tartarus Titans realizing the Kings are weak, trying to push in.
Aurora, have you stuck around for too long? Transformation from Genetics as Variety bowls down the mid lane. And Aurora now answers my question, says no, he's able to stay alive. And Variety, the threat of this RDO just running towards you for any member of the Tartarus Titans is scary. And so the Camelot Kings are able to compound on their lead, 4,000 gold in the lead now. The Tartarus Titans, the team with not much to show for it. And now you're 14 minutes into the game. We talked about how Cyclone Spin might feel with different outcomes of this early/mid game. Being even is better than being behind, but you'd much rather be ahead on a pick like this, and your team is behind. And so Cyclone Spin's in a tricky spot, I think, as far as choosing those engagements with the Rocket.
Yeah, in the late game, Danzaburo without a lead has to be very choosy with that ultimate, as you highlight. And generally, probably just going to be tossing it out instead of riding it in himself and then trying to find those taunts from max range. Can't be that all-in aggressor that Danzaburo can be when he's ahead. So from dead even with similar build to Netro, it looks like it is going to be the kin size again for Cyclone Spin in this third slot, which makes sense. Does not utilize the attack speed power boost of Silver Branch nearly as well as Netroid does, as he gets additional attack speed from the Heavenly Banner. So instead it is going to be a little bit more so a Tank Shredder build here from Cyclone Spin, and he's got good targets for it. Variety, Captain Twig, Genetics, all going to take a ton of damage from him, but is not been given the opportunity to utilize that as of yet. The Tartarus Titans in a goose egg. 15 minutes into this one, need to start finding some spots to fight back in. The Camelot Kings have been dictating the entirety of the pace so far, and it's generally been around either Variety showing up to a team fight or Captain Twig just creating a ton of space, and it's been working out for him mightily well. And it's working out here yet again. Genetics just walks in front of him and gets him a tower.
That's right. Tier 1 tower in mid gone, and Tier 1 and left fell just a moment ago. So the Camelot Kings are pushing this advantage all over the map with very little pushback from the Tartarus Titans. Both mid laners in a similar spot, so maybe that's a highlight for the Tartarus Titans and their ability to come back in this game. Similar spot build-wise, not necessarily level-wise. Big Man Tings has farmed up an extra couple of levels over Paul. And I feel like build-wise, Myth, this has become a little bit more standard this weekend. For a while, it was Charon's coin first, kind of no matter what. Then you maybe start to see some different options in the build. Feels like Chronos Pendant into Soul Gem, maybe even into Soul Reaver here, has kind of been the name of the game over these last few sets.
It's just that large burst of net damage to initiate a fight. I mean, we saw Paul last time around throw out the third ability for the majority of an HP bar. Cyclone Spin caught out.
He gets stunned again. The rocket will help him. We're going drifting around the corner, and Cyclone Spin for the time being is out, but Captain Twig has the ability to re-engage Aegis
again
and a Scarab's Blessing, but can Twig wait this one out? He got just a little bit of time. Winds of Shamash over the wall gives Captain Twig the kill, and it might get better. Paul into his ultimate as well. The Tartarus Titans ravenous for at least one kill on the board, but I'm not sure they're going to get it. Aurora is going to fall instead.
And now it's all up to Paul to just survive this one. Layers tries to join his team for that fight, but too slow on the rotation. The Camelot Kings finally, in Game 3, are able to chase into a Tier 2 tower and actually have it pay off. This time it only took a 6,000 gold lead to get them to this point. That said, Tartarus Titans, I mean, the boat's slipping away. The sand is slipping through your fingers. The time is running out. The Camelot Kings are really now in a position where the ball's in their court. They can essentially do no wrong on the map.
Knockup from Paul. Does effectively nothing outside of just the knockup onto Variety. Variety shrugs it off and immediately resumes what he was doing anyway. And so this RDO, if you weren't already concerned, has officially reached concern point for the Titans. Level 17. Benji's closed up that gap a little bit now. Level 16 on this Hercules. Excavate. Nope. And the Camelot Kings take down the Pyromancer. We got to rehash. The Tartarus Titans have to win one out of the potential next 3 games. So if you drop this one, you've got 2 more. And for the Camelot Kings, you just got to take it 1 game at a time. And if they're able to close this one out, your job does get a little bit easier. Cyclone Spin's looked for those rockets a couple of times, and this is another one that doesn't quite hit its mark.
Gold Fury, Oni Fury rather, is pulled here by the Tartarus Titans again, just trying to find something on the map.
Genetics pulled and pushed right into the back line, but Genetics wants to be there. He's going to transform. Cyclone Spin deleted by the 4-0 Captain Twig. Oni Fury goes to the Kings as well. Now Frenzy gets used on the re-engage. Captain Twig chasing down one. Paul being chased down by Variety. Everyone from the Tartarus Titans being looked at by someone on the Camelot Kings, and the Titans have won 0 of their matchups. The Camelot Kings had a few more kills and a Fury.
Aurora falls. Let's see if Benji wants to follow him. No heal available, but does get Tinks. Nice ult.
Benji needed that one, but he's going to fall for his troubles. Genetics gets the next layers, the only one in the way of a Deicide in Variety. He wants it. He's chasing down layers. Could be the 19-minute Deicide. The layers with the tether to keep himself alive. And Myth, now it's just third verse, same as the first two, but the roles are reversed here. The Camelot Kings have killed everyone. They've died once, and they're putting the Tartarus Titans against the wall here.
Third verse, same as the first. Roles reversed. Tartarus Titans now in the hearse. Spitting some bars here on the cast, and now the Camelot Kings picking up some heat themselves. Fire Giant being looked at.
That's right, Myth. That second wind. It's been a long day, but it's been a fun day, and Myth is keeping our brains in it as the Camelot Kings take down the FG a bit slowly, but they'll take it down nonetheless. Maybe just baiting in the Tartarus Titans. Aurora does not have Scarab's Blessing, and with that does not have much of a chance. Netrioid gets his first kill of the game, and everyone but BMT has got FG. I suppose the Kings are just waiting for Big Man Tings to respawn there, but didn't want to leave it up to chance that everyone else would get the FG buff.
Stop me if you've heard it before this set, but 5 members with Fire Giant and 10,000. Okay, all right, yeah, okay. Genetics transforms into a dragon. That's the first time with Genetics, but not the first time we've seen it. This Phoenix is going to fall quick.
Coerce plus Frenzy equals team fight for the Camelot Kings and equals 1 dead Phoenix on the right side of the map. Benji walking on out. Here's a rocket on in, but Cyclone Spin was not on it. Genetics has to leap away. Excavate! Plus layers will get Genetics in the dirt. Cyclone Spin has the Scarab's Blessing on him, but look at Captain Twig. He's rampaging this game. He wants more. And Variety does as well. Cyclone Spin's going to kite back into the fountain. And the Camelot Kings had 2 more kills. They had a Phoenix, and they only lose Genetics.
Big Man Tings isn't here to have fun. He wants to win the game. Tier 2 tower being looked at by him. Variety creating infinite space, and it's just 3 members of the Titans standing between the Kings and the Phoenix. Would be a great opportunity to push in now. No ultimates available to the Chaos team.
Captain Twig, Netrioid, Big Man Tings, Variety, all on to the mid lane Phoenix. There's a lot of CC onto Variety here, who will use the beads to back away. 8 seconds on Benji, 10 seconds on Layers, 0 seconds on the engage from Captain Twig, 0 seconds on the life of the mid lane Phoenix. Big Man Tings might have to Thunder Crash away here. Just use the Taiko drums. Variety taking a lot of damage, avoids the last bit. Paul on the chase, but blink away secures Variety's life.
Yeah, he's walking out of that one scot-free. Big Man Tings should be the new target, and with Thunderclap is going to walk away as well. Right side Phoenix falls down off of the Fire Giant push, as does the mid Phoenix. That's easy stuff, man. Just easy stuff for the Camelot Kings.
Easier
21
with,
minutes.
Emperor's Armor.
Yeah. Ooh, Emperor's Armor does make it a little bit easier. Removing some of that attack speed from these Phoenixes will be Captain Twig. I gotta think that that's likely the quest item that he just elects to finish, because that's not something you see as core on a Gilgamesh generally, but instead Twig, ever the opportunistic player, always gonna take what is dealt him here. Only 2 structures standing between the Camelot Kings and the completely exposed Titan of the Titans themselves. I think it's going to be a hard-fought defense for the Chaos team, as they are pretty far removed from any chance to win themselves this time around. It's going to take a lot of defenses. Not 2, not 3, maybe 4 or 5.
I mean, look, this game's over except for the Titans still being there, right? I mean,
I don't know about that. I mean, come on. We got to build some intrigue, Dave.
Myth, look, there's intrigue to be built. You're right, and that's my favorite thing to say. And, you know, you're right. You got to build the intrigue, but at some point, the intrigue is hard to build, and this is one of those cases, because the Camelot Kings have dominated every facet of this game. We have seen miracle Phoenix defenses, and that's what it's going to require. We need some intrigue in the sense that we got to turn some water to wine into our base here for the Tartarus Titans. It could start with Layers winning a 1v1 against Captain Twig, but that won't be the case. You at least get the ultimate out of the Gilgamesh. Small win for the Tartarus Titans.
It is exactly that, a small win. Gilgamesh has been great for initiation, but he's not the core of it. Keep your eyes on Variety.
This would be another small win, but Variety only loses half of his health. And look at the onslaught of the front line. Everyone on the Titans half HP, but that's not going to slow down Layers, who is the lord of the
Phoenix
afterlife. Into the back line. No more Phoenix on the left. No more health on Cyclone Spin.
Rip.
Captain Twig re-engages, and Cyclone Spin in the dirt. Big Man Tings adds another. It's a Scarab's Blessing onto Layers. Is it enough? I don't think so, Mifflin. The Camelot Kings routing the Tartarus Titans in Game 2, and on to Game 4 we go.
Aurora with his last breath does get the Scarab's Blessing off post-mortem, just so that Layers could die yet again. We're not going to get a close one in this one. It's going to be a close set, potentially, but no close games. These guys are swinging, and they're swinging wildly.
Don't I look like a fool? I had this bad boy ready to go.
I didn't get one.
No, we have one.
Exactly, and it never gets used. That's a clean broom.
I'll let you use this in the green room when we're done. Is that cool?
No, maybe I do it here. Okay,
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, reverse sweep coming up for the Camelot Kings.
It might be. If we continue this pace, as I step off camera, if we continue this pace, could be. Some intrigue, Miff, gets sprinkled into this set, though no real intrigue in game number 3. Game number 4, can the Camelot Kings continue this streak? Find out after this break.
Camelot Kings brought their game back for game number 3, and now we move into a game number 4. But if you want to bring your A game back at home, you can go to shop.smiteproleague.com and get your hands on one of our mouse pads that are back exclusively just for the remainder of the weekend. So if you missed your opportunity the last time we had around, well, here's your second chance to do so. We've got one here in the studio as well. This is the 36 by 18 version of it, 3 foot by 1.5 feet. If I gotta convert that there for you, there's my quick math on the stream, and that's the last of the math that I'll be able to do. So if you haven't got your hands on the mouse pad, go for it now, because, well, now's your last opportunity to do so. We'll toss that down there because it blocks a little too much of our view down here for it. But Jim Tucker, Hurry Win, and Taco here for game number 3's conclusion. And it's a little bit of a role reversal here. I think Mifflin's little thing there, second verse, same of the first, but roles reverse. I'm going to take that from him. That was a pretty good, a solid bar from him in the midst of that one. But it's just how it felt. Camelot Kings looked like they took the Tartarus Titans place here in game 3.
That went about as expected, I think. Anytime you have a Hercules in the solo lane up against the likes of an RDO, it just didn't really seem as though Benji had any sort of room to work with, and Camelot Kings, they definitely capitalized off of that pressure.
Yeah, I didn't think we got to really talk about it too much before they got into the game, but yeah, I can't imagine. I can understand why they would pick Hurricane to RDO. Maybe he just thought it doesn't matter, Solo's ungankable anyway. I'm going to be Hurricane team fights. But Twig made an early rotation over here, and even with the beads, Benji was not able to get away from this gank. And after this kill, we saw Kings kind of take control of all the neutrals, all the scorpions around the map, and just generate a big lead.
I didn't realize that was a tail end of the distance that dropkick could go, that he was able to get a big one. And I mean, Captain Twig, he pulled it off in the last week of the SPL regular season. He brought out like an 11-0 or 12-0 Gilgamesh, so not surprised to see him try and make this work. And game 2 wasn't so big for it, but here in game 3 looked a lot better. The team was finally kind of communicating with each other more. We're finally going to go in on the targets that we're calling for, and even with some of the big ults that Layers had, there was just nothing that the Tartarus Titans were able to do, even at this Phoenix defense.
When you lose control of one of your side lanes, especially as early on as the Tartarus Titans did here in game 3, it just becomes really difficult for the jungle mid to really have all that much influence on the match, because then it essentially for Layers it becomes more of a problem of, okay, where do I need to be just to try and match the actual pressure that the Kings are introducing, and it just gives that slight edge over to Twig, especially because we saw him go from solo, then he goes back over to duo, then he goes back over to solo, and it's just this non-stop run around, and it can be really difficult to keep track of. And I don't think that Cyclone Spin was really having all that much of a blast either on the Danzabaru.
Yeah, I think maybe jinx him a little bit with that one. I think we'll see him probably go to something a little bit more traditional, something we probably expect from him a bit more, maybe even a top 3 pick for him in this draft here. I think he's been a little experimental up 2-0. Not that he necessarily had a bad game or anything, but he was dominant in those first 2 games. I think we should expect him to get back to his roots there.
Gotta feel a bit bad for Paul there, too, putting up 24,000 player damage on Morgan Le Fay, and even being top damage in the game just wasn't quite enough for him. We'll see if they change that up here for Picks and Bans game number 4. Camelot Kings, if they want the chance to win this set, well, they've got to make the reverse sweep. They got step 1, which was taking their first game for it, but they still have a tall task to be ordered. And now the Tartarus Titans, for the first time this set, have that first pick option. How does that kind of shift up the picks and bans for them, Taco?
Well, I actually like what Hurry mentioned right before we went live. It's just the sense that Camelot Kings might have figured out a strategy that works, but that was their 3rd time being in the first pick position, and now they essentially have to clean slate, do it all over again, because second pick is a completely different world in a sense, and it's not something that the Camelot Kings, they don't really know exactly what the direction is going to be from the Tartarus Titans. And the Titans, we've been seeing them do these Hell Tiamat bans time and time again. Instead, it's going to shift that focus to the Camelot King side if they don't want to allow something that aggressive.
And we do see Hell banned away here by the Camelot Kings, and an Artemis to boot, just having a little bit of a flashback there for game 1 and 2 against Cyclone Spins, and making sure to take that comfort pick away and taking a comfort pick away from Paul. If you're not going to have the first pick, it seems that Hell is kind of the go-to ban for these second pick positions.
Yeah, I'm not surprised to see Hell not make it into any of these games so far. The Kings are kind of sticking with some of their throwaway bans from this side as well, which isn't necessarily what you can usually get away with from the second pick side. So I'm actually kind of curious what's going to get through here, because one of the strong picks is definitely getting through early here. Osiris and Erling are both open, maybe looking to trade those. Odin being gone makes me think that is probably the direction they're going. Maybe they might try to take both if Titans go for a Tiamat.
It's been wild to see that Yemoja has also been able to make it through so many times in this set, all the way till second ban phase, I think, for the first 3 games throughout it. And now that it's left back open, Tiamat as well left available. And that's an instant snap pick here for Paul, making sure he can have something comfortable, making sure he can have something strong here for this mid lane pick.
If I'm the Kings, though, I'm probably going to resort back to that RDO again for variety. He definitely had a really strong showing in the solo lane in game number 3, and it just seems like a really strong pick, especially up against the likes of a Tiamat, because it's just hard for a Tiamat to create any sort of self-peel against that movement speed buff. 100% have to remember. I keep bringing it up because on top, when you pair it with the itemization that's currently popular, it's hard to argue against priority picking RDO.
And picking a Fafnir to boot alongside it. Hurry, when you're staring down, you got, let's put it into your shoes here. You got Tiamat, you got one of the premier mid laners, but now you're staring down the barrel of RDO Fafnir. What's kind of the picks that you're trying to lean maybe your front line towards grabbing here?
Yeah, I think he's probably not going to go towards the Hercules again. I think he saw why that's not necessarily the best matchup, even if he does go the beads. I think we might see him pick the Cerberus here in the top 3. That is what he was going before, and I think that's his preferred Guardian pick. I wouldn't be surprised to see that again. I'm not surprised to see the Erling as well. That means the Osiris is open, so he could go that as well to try to deny the jungle pick from the Kings too.
Maybe see a Gilgamesh pick here, maybe take it solo lane, or do you think they just kind of let this Gilgamesh maybe fly over? Because Kings, they have the option to pick it if it is available for him here in this 3rd pick, and it will be as Cerberus is locked in, as you highlighted, Hurry.
Yeah, I actually think they're hoping they pick Gilgamesh because I think they're more worried about the Osiris pressure. You might not always be able to see it and how it affects the map, but the pro players certainly are feeling the pressure from those jungle picks early, and I wouldn't be surprised if the Kings pick Gilgamesh over Osiris, but I think it might be the wrong move in what the Titans want.
I'm right there with you. I think that Osiris probably would have been a little bit more impactful, but we are missing the context as far as the comms are concerned from the Camelot Kings, and Twig having had some success, especially in that game 3, I think that that's the primary reason why he's opted for this Gilgamesh over the Osiris, but it will be a little bit more difficult, I would say, for the Gilgamesh to kind of match that pressure from the Erlang Shen. And now with that Cerberus in solo, a little bit more of a stability matchup in terms of not just having to default to immediately playing on that tower line.
Second round of bans come through, and it's going to be Ares banned away from Aurora here for the Titans, and the Titans will take the Chernobog off the table. So again, taking some more shots at Netroid here, try and keep them on something a little bit less comfortable. But he looked just fine on that Hachiman last game, giving him something maybe a bit safer more than anything, as far as not having to worry about global or repositioning stuff like the ROM or the Chernobog. So let's kind of sit comfortably in that backline, Taco.
The main thing about the Hachiman from last game is that Netroid didn't really have to do anything other than farm, essentially, because there was so much built-up pressure already from that solo side of the map. I like that the Tartarus Titans don't bother trying to ban that Hachiman away, because I really don't think that that was an issue. It was more so just another element the Kings had in their back pocket because of the fact that they had so much success stemming from elsewhere on the map. And so if Cyclone Spin decides to look for an aggressive pick, I think that it would probably be along the lines of the Izanamis that we've seen from him in the past. Paulo could potentially be played in his favor as well, just because of that global element.
Is going to be Hachiman locked in on the tail end of the bans for the Camelot Kings. As we see Raw one more time banned away, and probably the only player in the league that I imagine we're seeing any kind of Raw bans here. Camelot Kings, they've got their mid laner left. Where are you kind of putting the books here, Hurry Win, for maybe that mid lane selection?
Well, they went to the Hera before, I think, when they got this low in the draft. I wouldn't be surprised if he had faith in that pick and tried it again. I'm not necessarily about that pick, but it is definitely something that they've seen success with, and I wouldn't be surprised if he goes back to it. I do think he might have picked the Raw if they didn't ban it, because it is some mid-pressure as well. But I'm not exactly sure. We've seen maybe the Baba Yaga, I guess. We haven't seen that out of him in a while, but I can't really imagine that he has anything too valuable, unless, of course, they're still playing Janus, which they haven't showed yet, which I think is obviously a fantastic pick. You don't have to ask me.
Giannis is definitely strong, and it's just, the classic case scenario. I'm sure that you definitely understand the benefits, or reaping the benefits of it. You only need one through space and time to connect to really change the entire outcome of a team fight, or even just an objective fight. So I do think, though, that as far as dual lane is concerned, this Fenrir pickup could be a really big hit or miss instance here for the Titans, because Fenrir, I think, is going to have a lot of early harassment up against the likes of this Hachiman, and it might force the Camelot Kings dual lane to naturally play a little bit more passive, which means then that the Tartarus Titans could look to generate some pressure elsewhere on the map.
Camelot Kings are down currently 1-2, as you can see at the top if you missed it. Coming up into here, this is a big one for them. They were down 2-0, able to get a victory in game number 3. This game 4, this is going to be a big one, Taco, for them. How do the Kings kind of punch back and potentially bring us to this game 5?
Well, if the Kings just play to their strengths, which I think is going to really surround that solo mid-jungle dynamic, then that's going to be where the win condition really lies at. But the most difficult aspect, of course, is just how strong the mental fortitude really is, because and these kinds of best-of-5 series, when you're down 2-1, you know even the slightest mistake could be it for you, and that's the end of your playoffs lifeline. So for the Camelot Kings, I'm just hoping that they don't hesitate too much because of that.
Looking at a Cerberus, Fenrir, Erlong Shen frontline Hurrywin, how hard is it going to be for this Giannis to really bring up here for the Kings?
Well, I think the Giannis has a lot of survivability, so I think it is a good option to kind of survive against these frontliners. But they do all have beads force on all of these frontliners, and they work very well together to pressure the backline. So he's really going to, Big Man Ting's really going to have to be on point. Cyclone's going to have to be on point with their active usage and their positioning. Otherwise, they're going to have a feast.
Can the Camelot Kings keep their playoff dreams alive? We're going to have to see what happens in game number 4.
Feast sounds pretty good to me right now, Miff. That's Hurrywin's got my mind on food here. I don't know about you, but I'm thinking about a feast, and we'll have to get there.
I invited you out to dinner. You said no.
When?
Like 6 hours
No,
ago.
I mean, when's dinner?
Oh, like whenever this set ends.
I think everyone's going to be closed by the time the set is over if this one continues on the way it has. And this is so important. I love contextualizing the state of the set before we really get into the meat and potatoes of the game itself. Now, if the Camelot Kings win this one, a team that I still think you just got to take it a game at a time. You can't think to yourself, we got to win 3 straight. You got to think, I need to win this game. I need to win this game. I need to win this game. If the Camelot Kings win this one and we go to a game 5, I think all the momentum's got to be on their side, right? The Tartarus Titans have to be in their own head about the fact that they've only needed to win 1, and they dropped 2.
Yeah, a ball in motion tends to stay in motion. I think that was Newton that said that. And a team that's winning tends to stay winning. Camelot Kings looking to keep this pushing forward for them. Tartarus Titans, though, I think have a composition that is very strong pressure across the board. I mean, Izanami on her own is going to get wave pressure. Aurora on this Fenrir is going to get kill pressure for the duo lane. Mid, you have got a late-game ticking time bomb that is Tiamat. Layers on the Erlang Shen should act as a bridge for that Tiamat into the late game. And then Benji finds himself a much better matchup this time around. At least able to steal away some of that healing for Variety and doesn't need to utilize that leap for damage like Driving Strike. So that cripple field not going to be nearly as impactful in the 1v1.
Captain Twig had a great game in game number 2, Miff. The Gilgamesh was looking fantastic. The engages, the damage, the executes, all felt like they were there. Whereas Layers, maybe not by any fault of his own, didn't quite have the same impact. Nobody on the Tartarus Titans did in game number 3 is what I'm looking for here. Variety gets a double stun, but Layers has locked him in place, and Variety will walk on away. And so the RDO, maybe that's where you put some early pressure here if you're the Tartarus Titans, because by the end of game 3, Miff, Variety felt untouchable. This RDO was walking into the team fights and doing everything and walking out just fine.
Yeah, here's the thing, though. I just broke down that Benji doesn't really have to worry about the cripple field nearly as much. You know who does have to worry about it? Layers. His ganks, I mean, it got crushed right there. If it were anyone besides an RDO, Variety probably either at least loses his beads, maybe loses his life, but uses the cripple field and immediately stops that transformation from Layers. So there's no knock-up, there's no damage.
Great point.
I don't think Layers can really spend much time in that lane, unless it's just auto attacks.
Right.
If he's going to use his third ability, well, he's not allowed to do it.
What is difficult for Layers as well, you got a full 5 stack of beads for the Camelot Kings at level 1. Everyone's got a set. Is it a set? We keep calling them pairs of beads.
Well, it's more.
I
It's a
see one
singular
bead.
bead. No,
Right.
no. There's like 2 small beads.
Are they in the background? All right.
Yeah.
I'm not getting
There's
us off
3
track
beads.
here, Miff. Miff, this is playoff Smite. We're in a
You
semi-final.
started it. Don't
Stop
yell
getting me
at
off
me.
track. Stop getting me off track. Here is one Don't bring up whether it's beads or bead.
You brought it up.
I can't
went
believe
there
you
with
right
you.
now. I cannot believe you. Will you focus up here?
Okay, I'm tightening up. I'm here.
We got a semifinal. See, it is okay. So in the background there are beads.
I said that.
Oh, it's like a bracelet or something. Look, because they wrap around the backside.
Shut up, Dave. There's no action, so I can't make. I guess I'm supposed to be talking right now.
You're right. No, it's okay. Sorry, we've gone off on a tangent. That's our only tangent this game, I promise.
And set, really.
And set. We've been good, Niff. We've been good. Well, the action's been good as well. One team or the other has basically been controlling every facet of the game in games 1, 2, and 3. Titans 1 and 2. Camelot Kings, game number 3. I put a lot of weight on Aurora here on this one as well. This Fenrir support. I mean, 5 beads, of course, is going to make that feel a little bit more difficult. But you want this early pressure when you've got this pick.
You really do. I think maybe Aurora could at least try and force off a beads here. Does have the Ragnarok available, but elects not to. Instead, going to wait for a more high-value target, something that can really start to ring its way true. Maybe he's just waiting on layers to rotate in and force the beads before he looks to get aggressive.
Sometimes on this Fenrir myth, you completely pass over thieves with your first item, but it looks like that's what Aurora is looking for. Sometimes you start with that, the cudgel, the first item in the
blackthorn tree.
Right.
Yep.
And so, are you surprised that Aurora is maybe sacrificing a little bit of that early damage? And I'll let you think about it, because Captain Twig has been ulted, but he has immediately turned this one around. It's a drop kick onto Layers, who will dash on away. Cripple Field just shy of connecting onto Layers. Looks like blue buff was secured by the Titans at least. But there is a lot of pressure now for the Camelot Kings. That'll make Layers think twice before stepping up again.
Yeah, I think you're right to bring up the Blackthorn selection here, or rather the lack thereof from Aurora. Still does have the opportunity to move in towards it after the Thieves, and it will slow down his early game ever so slightly. It tells me that the Tartarus Titans are kind of looking towards that late game as where they're really going to start to hit their pay dirt. I mean, they've got great scaling between the Tiamat as well as the Izanami, so it kind of makes sense to me that Aurora is going to kind of try and slow it down a little bit here. Doesn't want to get overly aggressive in the early because legitimately he does not need to. Camelot Kings, on the other hand, have decent scaling in the late game, and they have a very clear late game win condition, one that Hurrywin, I'm sure, broke down perfectly on the desk, in that Big Man Tings, 40 minutes into a game, could just press his 4 key and win them the game.
Of course, Hurrywin was giving the Giannis a lot of credit, right?
Yeah.
So you're saying
that's exactly what it is.
Yeah, fair enough. Look, Big Man, I'm so excited to watch this mid lane matchup. Paul, I feel like Tiamat just fits into that Paul mentality as well. It's the speak softly but carry a big stick, and that's
Roosevelt.
Well, that's what Roosevelt said, but I think that did right, and I think that's kind of how Paul operates as a mid laner. And this is the type of pick in Tiamat that by the time the late game rolls around, you're talking quietly for a little bit throughout the game, and then you are jumping in and decimating health bars by the time the end game rolls around. But then Big Man Tings has such a high skill pick on this Giannis, the playmaking ability there as well. I really do hope that both mid laners get put in a position to impact this game. I hope it's not lopsided one way or the other, because I think between Paul and Big Man Tings, there's going to be such a skill matchup there that'll sway this game one way or another. Aurora makes his way to the right side of the map right now, and Variety just kind of turns it around on him and does more damage than was dealt to himself. And he'll take the totem of coup to go.
Man, Aurora making the rotation over here so early kind of removes a talking point that I wanted to bring up a little bit later on.
Yeah, sorry,
because not generally you get to see the solo laner up against the support so early, but he's also kind of invalidated by Artio. Unchained, yeah, that's a mobility ability. Cripple Field stops that. Brutalize, Cripple Field stops that as well. So it means that Aurora, with a tanky build, isn't going to have like a stone sword. It's all abilities.
Layers blinks in, taunts in, Cyclone Spin on the board first. Some damage from Big Man Tings does fly in, but it's the Tartarus Titans getting a clean first blood onto Captain Twig, who is all alone by the red buff.
Dave, correct me if you know the answer, but I'm pretty sure whoever's gotten first blood in every single game so far this set has won the game.
Yeah.
So far this
Titans
set.
in game 1 and 2. Camelot Kings in game 3.
Off to a good start, right?
We'll see if history repeats itself for a 4th time here in this game. The Tartarus Titans not shying away from pressure. Invade onto the blue buff, but has Layers done too much. He will walk away for the time being. Variety just short on some of the damage, and Variety turns around, heads back, hammer from Genetics, and hits Layers. And the Tartarus Titans fall 1 as the Camelot Kings able to grab a kill, but Variety pulled right back into the fray. Paul has joined the fight on the right-hand side. The last bit of damage onto Variety is dealt by Paul.
Paul, though, does fall immediately afterward. Captain Twig, credit for this one, and Variety lives for much longer inside of that fight than I think anyone would have expected. He got off 3 or 4 heals for his entire team, generating a ton of value, but at the end of the day, that does equalize the slash lines between both of these teams, as well as the gold. About 600 now separating these squads. That's a paltry sum 9 minutes into the game.
Important for Genetics to grab that kill there, and then help out the Camelot Kings to answer back as well. So we are equalized in the kill department, but the Camelot Kings, despite dropping first blood, Myth, a casual 600 gold lead. That is not breaking the bank by any means, but invalidating that first blood bounty. That's that little uptick you saw on the halfway point of that gold chart there. Now ducks down towards the Camelot King. So a small skirmish, and we have not seen a lot of those, Myth. These kind of individual skirmishes that go one way or another ends up benefiting the Kings just a little bit more.
This might be the closest the games have been at the 9-minute mark so far inside of this set. Both teams still 100% in this one. Both teams very contentious. I'm expecting a lot of neutral objective posturing very soon, maybe around the 12 to 13 minute mark. We're going to see that as Netroid is forced to use the ultimate defensively in exchange for the Dark Portal from Cyclone Spin. So both ADCs losing out on a good deal of their fight potential. But the Titans are grouping up around this gold a little bit sooner than I thought they would.
Paul sends some damage Genetics' way, and Genetics will gladly take it and turn things around. This Fafnir has been so impactful so far in Phase 2 of Season 8, and Genetics has been one of the best at piloting it. It's a blink on in and a knockup from Layers and a pin over the wall. Just shy, though, is the taunt back in, but Captain Twig takes the portal, breaks the ankles of the Tartarus Titans. Is that enough to keep them alive? Aurora not wanting that to be the case. Will take a tower shot on the back end. Should be a kill here for the Camelot Kings, and it's Genetics who ends up answering.
Jungle for support trade is one the Titans will take every single day of the week. Looked like to me that might have been just an accidental play from Captain Twig stepping into that portal. Unfortunate situation. Puts him in position for the rest of the Titans to collapse in on him. And look, man, any single time that the ahead jungler does fall is a situation where Layers can exploit it and pull further ahead, or maybe put his team further ahead. This is burning fast.
Captain Twig is not on the map, and he is not in range to defend this Gold Fury, and so the Tartarus Titans will take this one down quietly. They'll pull themselves now ahead here in Game 4 of this best of 5, and again, it's not a big gold lead. It's about 400 or 500. That's the most we've seen up to this point so far. And so it's those small trades that become a little bit more effective. You kill off Twig, you immediately go to the Gold Fury, and that's how you're going to win this game if you're the Tartarus Titans. Twig has died a couple of times here, but Myth still maintains a 1-level lead over Layers. Big Man Ting still maintains a 1-level lead over Paul.
It's been very good pacing so far for the jungle and mid laners on the Camelot Kings. Genetics maybe biting off a little bit more than he can chew. Good timing on the jump will avoid the stun from Unchained. And the Camelot Kings looked like to me they wanted to start the Pyromancer up proper, but choose wisely not to stick around as both Layers and Aurora have worked their way over towards this side of the map. We haven't talked about scaling as of yet so far, and I think that the Tartarus Titans certainly got it in this game, and they're looking to push it a little bit sooner in their favor. I like this play. They're generating so much threat just by posturing around this Pyro that it's forced 3 members of the Kings to rotate, and 3 members of the Kings who are trying to defend a Pyro are 3 members that aren't farming.
Yeah, the Hunters have left themselves alone on the left side of the map. Cyclone Spin at a power point, power position now in the build with Ichabel, Odibo, and then what could be Chin Size a little bit later on. But Izanami Myth started to receive a little bit more love here recently. A great stim, maybe one of the best, if not the best, in that kit. Synergizes so well with that Silver Branch build. And so Cyclone Spin, if you can replicate some of your audio performances from the first couple of games, copy and paste that onto an Izanami, not only the mobility, but the damage that can pour out, even from this point on, not something the Camelot Kings can ignore.
He's already benefiting from a 1-level lead over Netroid and has likely the 1v1 potential as well. Netroid does have great survivability thanks to his own ultimate, but Izanami's got equally strong kill potential, especially if you can burn away those beads from the Hachiman that have remained up for the entirety of this game. If memory serves properly here, neither team really allocating any of their resources towards the duo lane, just leaving them alone on an island, as you highlight. The same could be said of the solo. past the 2-minute mark.
Aurora jumps up and over Captain Twig and then goes back in, and I think that might have caught Captain Twig a bit off guard. There was kind of a collapse from the Titans if Aurora had kept fighting, but now it's the Kings instead that have turned the tables. Good stun. Will keep the Camelot Kings at bay. But Aurora with low mana being chased down now by Variety, and it's at this point in the build where Variety continually feels like he's just kind of able to do whatever he wants to do. Stone of Binding probably feels great for Variety and the rest of the team right now. And the onslaught of tankiness from this RDO feels like it's just going to continue on for the rest of the game.
Aurora forced back to base here, and 3 members of the Kings grouped up. Could look to start up the Pyromancer, but Twig starting to rotate away tells me that that's not the case. Instead, it should be a reset back to neutral for both of these teams. And again, it's a slower pace now. It was a lot of sparks flying for the first 5 or so minutes, and since then has slowed down a fair deal. Tartarus Titans, though, still finding themselves slightly in the lead, a little under 1,000 gold to their names, and XP across the board. Leads for some members on the Titans, leads elsewhere, maybe slightly in favor of the Camelot Kings, namely Twig, who's still got about a half level over layers in the jungle.
Do you think that between a Tiamat and an Izanami, the Titans have the 2 highest scaling carries on their team?
That depends. Is Big Man Tings doing his best Hurrywin impression today, you think?
Yes, for the sake of this conversation. Say Big Man Tings goes off on Giannis.
You're probably favoring Big Man Tings. I mean, if he's able to hit Cyclone Spin at any point in the late game with a through space and time, you don't even get to evaluate the scaling potential of this Izanami. She's just going to get one shot inside of the fight. That said, if you're just talking about Hunter versus Hunter, you probably give it a Cyclone Spin. If you're talking just what is probably or probable of these mid laners, you're probably giving it to Tiamat as well. Camelot Kings have a much more high execution composition, and Tartarus Titans have better ease of play.
Pyromancer secured by the Tartarus Titans. Taunt in from layers will keep Genetics where he is, but it's a transform to buy a little bit more time. Paul with the up-down puts Genetics in the dirt, and the Tartarus Titans have pulled the kill lead back towards themselves. Variety's low here. Winds of Shamash out from Captain Twig separates this fight. Big Man Tings lets a snipe fly, but it connects on an 0-1. Pyro +1 to the Tartarus Titans.
Beads on Genetics and Variety as well, so now Aurora's got some good targets for the Ragnarok on the cooldown when it comes back up. So keep your eyes on this. Fenrir should be able to dictate the pace of this next engagement, and it's pretty clear where this next engagement's going to start up. Primal Fury should be on the menu for both of these teams. Camelot Kings do have the vision advantage thanks to the Oracle, so it's going to be hard for the Tartarus Titans to force an engagement here, but 2,000 gold in the lead, being one of the larger leads we've seen so far in the last 16 minutes, may empower this squad to the point where they feel confident enough to force a fight on this neutral objective.
Tartarus Titans heating up in Game 4 here. One more win is all this Titans team needs to go on to the finals tomorrow against the Atlantis Leviathans. Not an easy opponent by any means. Variety's going to rotate over.
Wow.
Still a bastion of hope for this Camelot Kings team, but WoW is right there, Myth. Soul Reaver plus Soul Gem equals a whole lot of damage.
Stop.
Into Variety. Luckily, RDO can sustain up a little bit, forces Paul back. But as much as we've talked about these carries back and forth, I think that's a pretty good glimpse into how difficult it's going to be to reach Paul. Paul's died once, but if you can kite backwards with the rest of your team with you, I mean, Variety is probably going to be the tankiest one, maybe aside Genetics, as this game goes on. And so the Kings have an issue on their hands, and that's this Tiamat in the mid lane.
Tiamat, as well as Benju's, established himself a quiet 2-level lead over Variety. This Cerberus hasn't really shown up in a team fight yet, has burned a couple of beads, but now with a lead and approaching full 6 items, yeah, he can do whatever he wants. And Variety, if it's his job to get towards this Tiamat, I think that we've learned that he doesn't love his job. Drop down to 50%.
I don't think he would. 50% also on the Primal Fury. Paul lets some damage fly towards Genetics. Hammer takes a trip as well, but ends up finding no target. Tartarus Titans reset, but then re-engage on the Primal Fury. Benji uses Stygian Torment, but finds nothing. Primal Fury reset now. Pin only onto Genetics as Netrioid dashes on away from this one. Full reset by the Titans.
Unfortunate whiff from Cyclone Spin. Dark Portal off the mark off of the Stygian Torment. Had it connected onto Genetics, likely cost that Fafnir his life and likely cost the Camelot Kings the entirety of the Primal Fury. Instead, Tartarus Titans trade out a ton of their ultimates and get nothing for it, barring Captain Twig's beads, which are going to be down for the next 2 minutes. So they maybe buy themselves a good target in the next fight, but that next fight's going to have to wait until all these ultimates are back up on the Order team.
And I think that's important for the Camelot Kings to show some face there, Myth, because that's where these games, all three, have gotten out of control. It's where there's a 2,000-3,000 gold lead, you don't step up around these neutral objectives, and then the game just kind of gets lost. Or you step up and then you just immediately die. Luckily, at 2,000 gold, at 18 minutes, this lead not back-breaking enough to make either team shy away. Both mid laners opting for a very similar build here, if not the exact same. Chronos Pendant, Soul Gem, Soul Reaver, into Obshard. So we've seen a lot of damage from Paul connecting. Unfortunately, the Giannis second to last on the damage chart, Smith. So we have not seen what Big Man Tings can do just yet. But that's where the Hurry Wind impression comes in. Sometimes all it takes is one.
Yeah, eventually it works 100% of the time. That's a direct Hurry Wind quote, so keep your eyes on BMT.
I mean, if you keep resetting the rate, yeah.
Eventually.
But it hasn't worked yet.
100% of the time, it will work sometimes.
It will work for the rest of the game, maybe.
Cool.
100% of the time.
Hey, look at Twig.
There you go. Thanks, Smith. Twig gets taunted in by Layers here, and Cyclone Spin combines for some damage in the Gilgamesh down. Now the Tartarus Titans operating with this one-man advantage. Big Man Tings through the portal, and that's left Variety to get Ragnarok back in. Some damage from Tings. Connects onto Aurora, though. Netrioid charges back in. Look how low the health bars are on the Tartarus Titans. Big Man Tings through the portal, puts Aurora down. It's a dash away. Cyclone Spin's got a double, and the Tartarus Titans pull this fight back, and they put 3 down, 4 down on a triple kill from Cyclone.
Big Man Tings now on the retreat, and he's going to have to run. Paul actually taking out a lot of his HP on the chase. Is going to be a reset now from the Tartarus Titans. Cyclone Spin still alive, 5-0-1 for the Izanami, by the way, as Big Man Tings is hovering. It's going to be close. Paul avoids the damage.
Benji's here.
Might be able to take it.
Big Man Tings halfway to his ultimate. It's a stun onto Big Man Tings, but then a portal taken will secure his escape. So that is a fantastic fight for the Tartarus Titans, and namely Cyclone Spin, who picks up 3 extra kills, and it's immediately to the FG for the Tartarus Titans. 10 seconds on Netrioid, 8 seconds on Variety. Captain Twig, Big Man Tings, Genetics, the only ones alive on the map, but Captain Twig's the only one close. Layers is low. It's a jump in from Captain Twig, and Layers gets taken down through space and time, flies in, but it's only hit the FG. Benji burns away at Genetics. Captain Twig is low here as well, and the Fire Giant's been dropped.
Has been. Maybe Genetics still tanking it up, has not reset just yet, but finally the Camelot Kings do let this one go. Tartarus Titans and Layers in particular just sticks around too long. He knew that the Kings were coming to this Fire Giant. He had great LOS. Benji calls out the rotation, and Layers refuses to reset. Level 15 is the Erlang Shen. Ultimate goes unused inside of that engagement, and he's dropped down to about 40% before any enemy gods show up. That's a situation where you gotta know when to hold them, you gotta know when to fold them, and Layers doesn't fold him, and well, he's gonna have to hold that L.
Yeah, Captain Twig folds Layers and puts him in a box.
Oh, that's way better.
Headed on back to base.
Yeah, that was good.
I appreciate that, man. I mean, if I wasn't good at saying that sort of stuff, I wouldn't have a job though. So every once in a while, I gotta make it shine. Cyclone Spin will dash away here as Netrioid has sent some damage his way. Aurora gets stunned by Variety. Cyclone Spin still in range. Dark Portal is there. So Fire Giant is where the eyes were a moment ago for the Tartarus Titans. Now all eyes have been shifted back to this Primal Fury, which will make the Fire Giant a little bit easier for whichever team is able to secure it here in just a minute. All ultimates outside of Paul's, outside of Aurora's are ready to go. Big damage into Genetics though, and then you have to look at the actives. Only one set of beads immediately ready for the Camelot Kings.
Genetics can at least spam Coerce to try and get some of that HP back. Tartarus Titans, on the other hand, can just rely on Paul to keep doing this to the tanks of the Camelot Kings. Both Variety and Genetics are being victimized by this Tiamat. They are dropped down before they're even allowed to engage. Just a slight peppering of damage towards Variety drops them down 10%. A couple more of those, and all of a sudden these objective fights are going to get much, much easier for the Tartarus Titans. Somebody has to close gap onto this Tiamat and address this problem. So far, no one's been quite able to do so. Maybe it's got to be Captain Twig. Maybe it's got to be Variety. If you ask me, it's got to be both.
Here's the bad news. Once we get onto the Tiamat, we've got a 5-0-1 Izanami to deal with as well. Cyclone Spin's had a game and a half here in game number 4. You got a lot to deal with if you're the Camelot Kings. That said, we've seen now a glimpse at what Big Man Tings can do if allowed to operate free and clear in the back line. The unstable vortexes, the portals hit for a whole lot of damage in that Phoenix fight earlier on in this game. Netrioid is now at level 20. Far into that build as well with the chin size. So while the KDAs are flashier for the Tartarus Titans, and that's not all that crazy for me to say, the Camelot Kings are at a similar point of potential if, that's a big if, you're able to give Big Man Tings, give Netrioid that space to operate. And Myth, kind of what I was hoping for. Some mid lane needs for both teams here. Definitely make the end of this game quite interesting. Primal Fury started up here. Frenzy gets used by Aurora. Aurora's half HP. Captain Twig won't be in range, and the Camelot Kings have to watch the Fury fall.
Yeah, does Twig have the blink available? Did have blink available for that one, so maybe could have tried to have gone for the steal, but doesn't want to risk too much in a late game fight. If he loses his life, he likely loses the Fire Giant as well. Benji, though, finds 3. Good little bit of damage into Tings. That should spell the end of this engagement. Tartarus Titans have net themselves nearly 5,000 gold in the lead. So Pyromancer, Fire Giant, they're going to be incredibly favored in fights around that. Layers, who has not really had to get too dirty inside of these engagements so far, has generally been secondary ADC to do exactly this. Shreds the Pyromancer. Camelot Kings, no response. And now Layers can blink into the back line, try and set up for his carries, and if he dies, so be it. As long as he's burning 1 or 2 sets of beads, that means that Aurora's got great targets.
Whoa, Captain Twig's been jumped on in mid, and Captain Twig will jump out, does not take the portal, and goes back the quicker way, and that is in a box. Layers puts him there. Now Aurora jumping onto Netrioid here. Ragnarok will chase down this Hachiman. Aurora's taking a lot of damage, though. Can the Camelot Kings get this kill? The answer is yes.
Yeah, game fatigue setting in. 3-man silence from Cyclone Spin. Buys some time for the rest of the team.
Watch out, the jump in from the Tartarus Titans might catch out the Camelot Kings. Cyclone Spin being walked at by Variety on the back line. Genetics jumps on away. Netrioid finding the damage onto the front line, and no one has looked at Netrioid on the back end of that big stun. 1 for 1. Aurora down. Captain Twig is down as well. And that's a trade we've seen a couple of times.
It has been, but I wouldn't call it a trade this time around. 2 people just took turns getting picked inside of this one. Captain Twig, maybe the fatigue sets in, maybe forgets where the Tartarus Titans are standing, steps up to the tier 1 tower in mid, loses his life. Aurora says, oh, we found a pick, maybe we do it again over here on right side. Doesn't realize he's completely alone, jumps into 3 members of the Camelot Kings and pays with it with his life, rather. So now, both teams reset to neutral. Despite that being a high flying engagement, maybe it's only the relics that spells the difference between these 2 squads. Now, Camelot Kings expending both relics from Genetics. 90 seconds left on those beads, and Big Man Tings rather loses out on the Aegis, so 2 minutes on that one, whereas on the other side, it's really just Paul that uses his.
The Titans with a 5,000 gold lead starting the FG. Frenzy gets used and Genetics is jumped on, but there's no damage on the back end. Netrioid uses his beads, but Ragnarok eventually onto Variety will deliver a 2-man stun to the front line of the Tartarus Titans. Winds of Shamash swirling on around from Captain Twig here, and the disengage from the Titans is quick.
Only 1 set of beads still available to the Camelot Kings now. An ultimate down from Twig is a lot of engagement lost. Netrioid will at least have some CC immunity in his ultimate coming back and available to him very shortly. Up now, and Genetics will have the exact same thing, but only having 1 set of beads with Fire Giant on the line, whereas the Tartarus Titans maintain the majority of their relics and a gold lead. This is a massive advantage for the Order team. I want to see them push this lead while they've got it, and only one place to do so. That's the Fire Giant. Camelot Kings currently hold possession of the vision advantage on this right-hand side, but keep your eyes on the relics in the pockets of the Tartarus Titans. 1 sentry from Aurora can change all of that.
Once Benji gets his ultimate back up, there's massive blink engage potential onto the what will be 3 sets of beads down for the Camelot Kings. Aurora jumped in, found Variety. Ragnarok pulls him right back in. Taunt from Layers sends him back the other direction, though. Genetics will transform. It's a weak point. Paul has gotten the damage onto Variety, and that's the opening kill for the Titans. Genetics has to run away. Aurora's been taken low in the meantime. Nearly dropping a kill are the Titans, but they have found 1. It's on a great target, Variety.
Yeah, not ideal initially, as it is one of the tankier members of the Camelot Kings, but Paul's damage is nothing to be scoffed at, and Variety does fall to one of the very last ticks of the tornado from this Tiamat and is removed from the game for the next 30 seconds. Beads are back and available to 3 members of the Camelot Kings. But you're pointing it out, Dave. I see that disparity in the damage. 21,560 for Paul and less digits for Big Man Tings on the other side. Just 9,000 damage from this Yanis. Twig's got to step up. Tings has got to step up, and Genetics, he's got to step up to defend this fire.
Tings does not have through
Can't do
space
it.
and time, and there will be no defense. The Tartarus Titans can see it. They can visualize themselves in the finals of the Phase 2 playoffs, and it might happen with one Fire Giant Siege. Might take two, but they're in a position to take Game 4.
So many towers left and available to be farmed up for the gold. Primal Fury going to be spawning very shortly as well, and with the Tartarus Titans already benefiting from a nearly 7,000 gold lead. 28 minutes into this one, I think that they don't even necessarily need to step into the Phoenix. It's what you alluded to, where it maybe doesn't just take one Fire Giant push. Two might be what the doctor ordered, but this gold lead is crippling for the Camelot Kings as of right now. They still do have that late game win condition, which is big man Tings. He's been struggling so far to find damage in these engagements, but it only takes one to win you a fight, or win you the game rather, this late into a match. If he's able to hit Cyclone Spin just by Hail Marrying his ultimate all the way across the map, could just spell the end of the Tartarus Titans Game 4 here. So keep your eyes on Tings and keep your eyes on Variety. These guys have to step up.
Myth, Benji's put together a great game here. 0-0-7, the old James Bond KDA. 7 out of 10 affected kills for the Tartarus Titans. This is maybe the most in check we've seen in RDO since this pick started getting locked in. Variety has walked in and gotten melted down effectively every time we've seen it in these fights. We haven't seen that dominant King Arthur-esque playstyle where you can do what you please. And the Kings are going to need that under their left Phoenix here. You got to look at the map state. Right side wave for the Camelot Kings. Mid wave under no threat. There's still 2 towers there. Instead, the Tartarus Titans plus Tiamat minions looking left.
Tartarus Titans just have to burn through a couple of cooldowns here from the Camelot Kings. Keep your eyes on Genetics and Twig's ultimate. Benji dropped low, is able to disengage, but it costs nothing to the Kings here. No ultimates expended, and I mean it. Once Winds of Shamash is down, once that Dragon Transformation is channeled, that is the majority of the team fight potential lost out on by the Camelot Kings. Tartarus Titans, though, are not going to leave it up to chance. Benji takes a little bit too much damage, has a little bit of fear put into him, and instead, we're going to go ahead and work through the towers, and I think that's just a fine call. The Tartarus Titans have that much of a lead.
And that was just a portal, and then some damage on the end of it from Big Man Ting. So that still shows you, though, less than half the damage Big Man Tings has from what Paul's been able to provide. The build is well underway for Big Man Tings. Could be a Charon's coin to completely mirror the build that Paul has. And so all it takes, one portal, one volley of damage into anyone from the Tartarus Titans might be a kill. And so that's maybe where some of the defense strength for the Camelot Kings comes to play. Left side Phoenixes standing strong. Mid lane Phoenix now opened up. And the Tartarus Titans, Myth, they elect to take a deep breath here, look to the tier 2 tower. All 3 Phoenixes exposed. The Camelot Kings are going to have to Phoenix defend with 1 minute left on the FG buff.
Take a peek at all that gold in hand, man. There's no way the Tartarus Titans stick around much longer from here. Instead, head back to base and pick themselves up a lot of massive power spikes. Bulwark of Hope is now finished for Benji. Layers finishing out his build. Aurora starting to move into that Mantle of Discord, so his engage is legitimately a lot stronger as well. Very often we see Aurora use that Ragnarok just to close gap. Gets dropped low. Now when he gets dropped low, he's delivering a stun to the backline of the Camelot Kings. The Tartarus Titans have got a little bit of time to play with. 30 seconds left on this Fire Giant, but I think it's all going to come down to the next FG push, as you alluded to just a couple moments ago. An enhanced Fire Giants means that there's no backdoor protections for the Camelot Kings. If the Tartarus Titans are just able to expose one of these birds to Cyclone Spin for mere seconds, he will destroy them. Dominance inside of the build. One of the best stims in the game for a hunter. I think that really, even if Layers is able to move his way to any of these Phoenixes on his own in a split push situation, similar to what we saw in Game 2, he could do it all on his own as well. The Camelot Kings have put themselves in a position where their play has to be perfect if they want to win. The Tartarus Titans have a cushion of a lead. They don't have to play nearly as well.
Genetics walks forward, uses his beads, but there's still a Ragnarok. There's still a chance to get an opening kill here onto Genetics, but was it a bait? Genetics will transform here. Taunt through from Layers. Genetics gets pulled right
He's
back
out.
in, but jumps right back out. Layers has maybe overstayed, but Cyclone spins in for a little bit of peel.
Captain Twig, the closest one to the rest of the Tartarus Titans, is on the retreat here. Genetics expends the Dragon transformation as well as the Frenzy, wins the Shamash, used just to the peel as well.
Fire
that
Giant's
might
about
spell
to
the
come
end
back.
of it. Yeah, Fire Giant should just go to the
Genetics
Titans.
has to go back. Genetics has to go back, and the Tartarus Titans
They stopped
might
him.
be able to delay it. Genetics gets back to the fountain.
Watch out!
Big Man Tings is left as well, but this is a separated fight. Netrioid jumped on by Benji, but Variety will slow down the Cerberus as Netrioid lets some arrows fly towards the Cerberus, who will leap away. Fire Giant spawns. Genetics has been able to heal, but Myth, now Netrioid is half HP. Big Man Tings going back to the fountain as well.
Tartarus Titans have a massive power play here, but they don't have the exact same view we do on the casting team, so we can't see everything. These relics tell a story that the Camelot Kings would like to change. Dave blinks. Yeah, those are gone. Frenzy, your ability to do Fire Giant, gone as well, and 3 sets of beads down for just over a minute and a half. The Camelot Kings are struggling, and the Tartarus Titans are flourishing. All their beads still available to them, maybe a couple of blinks, maybe Bracer, which is coming up in 4 seconds. The Titans with every ultimate available and the relic advantage and the gold advantage.
They're not pushing
XP, a little bit in their favor, 17 to 15 in the support roles is going to be in their favor as well, but you're right, Dave. They reset, and the Camelot Kings, they reset as well. It's all about jockeying for position around the Fire Giant. One pick can completely change this game for either team.
And the Tiamat minions are in the mid lane, Myth, so the Camelot Kings can rotate to mid. They can take down those Tiamat minions a little bit quicker. Left wave is pushing anyway for the Tartarus Titans, but the Tiamat minions would have threatened that left side Phoenix all so much more quickly, and the Camelot Kings would have had a decision to make. Now it's easier to clear out that mid wave. 30 to 40 seconds is what you're looking at here for the Camelot Kings. Can you delay that out? Get your beads back up for not only your Hunter, but for your jungler, for your support as well. Aurora does not want that to be the case. It's a pull in onto Genetics. It leaps away, wins of Shamash, and then a jump back in from Captain Twig. Netrioid on the horse, running away. It's a pin from Layers, but everyone from the King survives.
Camelot King's going to have to reset yet again, so Fire Giant should go the way of the Tartarus Titans. Red buff on Cyclone Spin as well as Elixir of Power. He is shredding.
Can Ting steal it away? He won't even try. Enhanced Fire
He's
Giant
dead.
to the Titans. Captain Twig left to die. The Titans get the EFG +1.
4 members now. The Camelot Kings hovering inside of the jungle. They might be setting a trap. Benji, you walk into it!
Oh, Benji's jumped on, but he heals! He heals more than he took any sort of damage there.
He's alone!
You've got to get this kill. Netrioid and Big Man take
Aurora!
Benji in the dirt. Aurora left to Netrioid as well. Paul down to half HP, makes his way to the back line. Netrioid kiting back, but Cyclone Spin deals the damage. Paul on a killing spree. The Titans have put down 3.
Someone's gotta check this Hunter inside of these team fights. How much does Cyclone Spin have to do to earn some eyes on him? 6-0-4 on this Izanami. 2 members left from the Kings on the defense.
Phoenix down in the right lane. Variety and Big Man Tings, the last 2 alive against 3 members of the Titans. With EFG, it's 15 seconds on Captain Twig and Myth. We can catch our breath. The Titans will not look for the end. They look for the mid lane Phoenix. There's a lot of damage backloaded here with Big Man Tings, but it won't connect. 2 Phoenixes down.
And the left Phoenix is already pushed up with the minion wave, but the Tartarus Titans, cognizant of Genetics respawn in the next 10 seconds, are gonna go ahead and disengage. Benji may have had a trap sprung on him, but the Tartarus Titans respond in kind. It was a flank on the right-hand side that completely changes that engagement. The Camelot Kings thought they were in a great position, but they neglect to look at Cyclone Spin. And with enhanced red buff, Elixir of Power, and an enhanced Fire Giant, this Izanami does too much damage. Somebody has to address this guy. Captain Twig, Variety, Genetics, that's your entire job. Leave Big Man Tings and Netroid alone in the back line as long as they can close gap onto this Izanami and hopefully shut him down. That is one way in for the Kings, and it's one way they have not been able to find.
Yeah, great. And then it's the opposite of what we talked about earlier. Great, we kill Iza. And then we got a 36,000 player damage Paul we've got to worry about. It's Rod up to Hootie for Big Man Tings. Will not be the Charon's coin to finalize that build. And this is the smart play from the Tartarus Titans. You've got a minute and 45 seconds left.
Aurora?
On some enhanced Fire Giant buffs. Aurora gets his bubble popped. But the Camelot Kings can't walk back into base from here. They're going to have to go the roundabout way, and the Tartarus Titans may be a bit quicker to close on in, but they won't. One final chance for the Camelot Kings to stay alive here in game number 4. The Tartarus Titans need one more fight to go to the grand finals.
No relics available for big man Ting, so you can see how he's elected to play this one, and it's
Far away.
far away. He doesn't want to be anywhere near the Tartarus Titans right now, and he is right to do so. Layers, though, is a shark in the water. He's got his eyes on this mid laner. If Tings exposes himself, he's dead meat. Tartarus Titans, only one Phoenix left, and Layers is in.
Layers is in, but Layers is
Good
taking
kick.
a whole lot of damage. Captain Twig forces out the ultimate from Layers. Winds of Shamash separates this out. Ragnarok gets spent on a Captain Twig as well. Brutalize does next to nothing. The Camelot Kings round about this fight towards the mid lane. Layers has taken a lot of damage. Captain Twig has as well. Lots of ultimates down on either side. Frenzy gets used.
Titan.
Tartarus Titans looking for the Titan variety. Look into the backline. Cyclone spin, unstoppable. Cyclone spin, double kill. The Tartarus Titans continuing their streak here. 3-piece for Cyclone spin. Game 4 win to the Titans. We'll see you in the finals tomorrow.
Congratulations to the Tartarus Titans. They were dominant in this set, only dropping one game, and the Camelot Kings, to their favor, do look good in that one, but that's the only time they look good inside of this set, Dave. That was a convincing performance. Wow. I think it's only Taco that calls out the Tartarus Titans as her favorite to win playoffs, and you know what? They may have converted me here.
Taco is the only one with a playoff victory choice still alive. I went Kings. Everyone else.
No, it can't just be Taco.
Yeah, you, me, and Jay. Oh, that's right. I'm totally wrong. For some reason, I thought 2 people voted Bolts. We had people who voted Leviathans. I don't know why I'm thinking Bolts. So,
thank God.
Luckily, three out of 6 of us, I guess, still have our predictions still alive in this one. The Tartarus Titans, Myth, looking like a real scary team. Maybe the favorites here to win the Phase 2 playoffs. That's going to be a fun one. Leviathans versus Titans tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Myth and I are going to take a break. Don't worry, though. Post-game desk right after this.
Hello and welcome back to the desk one more time to close out day number 2 of our SPL playoffs, powered by our title sponsor at Alienware. If you haven't already, you can go to smitegame.com/Alienware and use code SMITEAW to get yourself some nice discounts and coupons and promotional sales and everything like that for you. For if you need any kind of Alienware gear like the Aurora Ryzen 10 desktop or the gaming monitor 240Hz 25-inch wide for it. So one more time, smitegame.com/Alienware for all the goodies for it, and code SMITEAW onto it. Last set of the day, last game of the day, now at a conclusion here. Hurry win, Taco. What a ringer for our final game.
It was definitely a little bit more lopsided, I would say, than game number 3, at least, for in the Tartarus Titans' favor, of course. I think that the adjustments that they made in terms of ensuring that they wouldn't have to deal with some of that RDO pressure in the same sort of capacity with a Warrior, now a Guardian. It just looked a lot better and a lot more clean for Benji on that Cerberus.
I mean, going through, this is what, the only time that Tiamat was let through this game, and we get, or this set, and now we get to see it go all the way to 38 minutes. Hurry went a little bit into it, you know, watching that final game break out here for the Titans. How do your expectations maybe for them going up against the Leviathans tomorrow kind of look?
I think their pick ban strategy is actually pretty similar to Leviathan, so I actually think we're going to see a little bit of a different dynamic develop here between those two teams. A lot of the bans and priority picks will probably be similar, but both these teams seem pretty hot right now. And I don't know, I just think it'll be a banger of a set, let's say that.
What do you think about this, Taco? Now, you're the only one in the office who did predict that the Titans would make it this far, and you knock out 3 of the other casters with the predictions. So now, it's you versus 2 more. I think is what, Gore and Aggro had the Leviathans. You still got some faith in the Titans here.
I think the Titans, based off everything that I've been watching from these guys, I really don't think that Camelot Kings put enough respect on some of the new synergy that's come into play. I think they picked the wrong end of the bracket to try and jump into, because I think it would have been pretty tough against the Dragons as well for the Camelot Kings. And when it goes down 3-1, I think it's kind of evident that the Tartarus Titans at least felt very comfortable in terms of what sort of strategies they were going to implement to sort of prevent a lot of this Camelot Kings pressure that we've been seeing between their double Guardian compositions. It seems as though genetics wasn't even really all that much of a focus, as much as it was just throwing a Roar, throwing Benji onto those heavy aggressive picks and just letting them generate enough space and consistent beads burn applications so that Cyclone, Paul, layers, they could all just kind of pop off.
Cyclone especially 9-0-5 got to end the set and move into the grand finals off a big triple kill at the Titan Room fight, and just so much space created for him. I mean, look at the damage numbers across the board. 42,000 for Paul, 27,000 for Cyclone. Both of these carries putting in some big work. As you said, a credit to their frontliners kind of allowing that space for them.
Yeah, the front line is always very important in allowing the carries to do their job. They kind of work in tandem that way. It's going to be rare that you see a carry have a really good game where their front line is falling apart, you know. They both kind of have to have kind of that synergy and work together well and doing each of their unique jobs. But yeah, I don't know. The back line, I would say especially of Titans really showed up today. The front line allowed that to happen. But I think Paul and Cyclone looked a little bit unstoppable today, and I'd be worried if I was playing against them tomorrow.
Well, maybe so. And speaking of the front line, we do have Aurora standing by for our post-game interview. Aurora, first off, I got to say big congratulations on your victory today.
Thank you. Could Herwin ask me a question?
Sure, Herwin. You got a question? You got a question for Aurora?
What are you gonna eat now that your set's done, Aurora? What's on the menu?
I don't know. I want ice cream, but yeah, you already know. But I might just have a PB&J or something.
A solid PB&J. You can't go wrong with a good old PB&J sandwich for it. Aurora, looking towards your match tomorrow, what are some of your hopes going up against Leviathans in the grand finals?
I'm just excited to play. Like, it's gonna be a fun set. I'm just happy we're doing well.
I think everybody's happy that you're doing well, especially, you know, getting Paul and Cyclone some big kills and some big carries kind of towards that later stage of the game. You know, tell me a little bit about that Khepri battle that you and Genetics were having at the start of that set, that kind of first pick Khepri, and that's something we see all the time.
Yeah, we're both just bugging out with that, and yeah.
Just a solid response for her. Well, Aurora, congratulations. Good luck in your good luck in your grand finals match tomorrow.
Wait,
Thanks.
what flavor ice cream?
Oh, that's a good question. We should have asked him what.
Missed your chance.
Maybe now we'll never know. Maybe we can have production ask him real quick.
Get him to tweet it out real quick.
Yeah, maybe we, Aurora, if you're still listening. Oh, hey, there he is. Now we got him back. Hey, Aurora, what flavor ice cream are you thinking? It's an important question. What flavor ice cream?
I need to know.
Peanut butter, of course. It's
Peanut
like the
butter
obvious answer.
You know what? That's respectable. That's respectable.
Should've
Okay.
known.
Now for Aurora. Good luck in your game tomorrow, and have a good night. You're gonna need some well rest to go up against Leviathan. So important one though. Peanut butter and jelly sandwich or peanut butter ice cream. You can't go wrong with either one.
Man loves his ice cream. I know that from teaming with him, knowing for many years.
I know
Nothing
that.
beats it.
Yeah, from Kabam asking me about the little ice cream adventures that I guess Aurora and Cyclone love embarking on.
And there are some nice little places nearby he could always go for. But let's take a look at the bracket if you missed any of the action so far today. If you're only just now tuning in for this last set, we had the Leviathans take on the Bolts as our first match of the day. That ended in a 3-1 for the Leviathans. Tartarus Titans with a nice 3-1 victory here today over the Camelot Kings. And now that puts us to the grand finals taking place tomorrow, 1 p.m. here back at everything going for it. Atlantis Leviathans versus Tartarus Titans. The Leviathans, they finally beat the curse. They finally were able to topple the Bolts, get rid of that curse that was haunting them for so long. What's it going to look like for them up against the Titans tomorrow?
I'm just so excited to watch these two teams duke it out because I think that both of them, especially in this later half of Split 2, have really just started to come into their own as rosters, and a lot of the synergy that we've been seeing develop between these teams, it just makes for such an interesting, I think, draft mini meta is essentially what's going. I think you kind of touched on that even, Hurry, where what we've been seeing might not necessarily be what we see tomorrow. But I mean, I don't know. I love both these teams. I think they're both great. Have a lot of solid talent on them, and it should just be a fun one.
Well, thank you so much, Hurrywin, for joining us here today, and thank you for all of you guys who have been out there watching. If you've been joining us with us throughout all the day, thank you so much. We'll be back here again tomorrow, 1 p.m. to kick off the grand finals between the Titans and Leviathans. Don't miss it. We'll see you back here first thing tomorrow.